Hello and good evening.
Yes, I am very excited for this episode. This is one of those episodes that I've had butterflies about, thinking about.
This is one where
Where
I once again get to, this is where I get to
this is the
justify
wrong
my
song too. Let's get this out of here. I don't know what that was, but I knew that was going to get content ID'd.
Yep. This is where I get to justify my Security Plus certification again.
Well, now we got no intro music. Don't worry, I'll think of something.
Oh wow. What are you gonna do?
I know exactly what I'm going to do. Let's see here. You remember Custom Robo, right?
Yes,
I do. That had a really good soundtrack to it. There's a version of this song. I think it's version C. There's like 4 different versions of this song. I think it is this one. I think it's this one. Let me copy this link. Let me see what happens. Or if the YouTube Music Bot will even recognize that this is a thing.
No,
fingers crossed.
There we go.
This is the right version. Okay. All right. So here we are. We're talking about the Virtual Adepts. And Kyle, this is a group that I thought was cool for a while. But I realized I was making the mistake the entire time of only ever reading the revised version. I read first edition, and now I think this is just my favorite group in World Darkness period now.
Really?
Where what I read in this blew me away, where it's the same as reading, say, the same reaction I got when I read the Octina book, where it turns out this group is holding all the cards and might actually be the best hope you have at defeating that technocracy. Is these guys.
Well, yeah, because they know them from the inside and outside. They built them.
Not even that. The technocracy was going to dominate the world by 1980, and the only reason as to why they were doing that is because of the Virtual Adepts. Without the Virtual Adepts, all of those plans went up in smoke. So this was the faction that truly was carrying the technocracy to victory.
The most based.
And they're absolutely fantastic. And what can you do with the Virtual Adepts, Kyle? Anything. Reality is a computer to the Virtual Adepts. You can hack reality. The life hacks are real. I'm not kidding you when I say that the life hacks are real.
There is a faction called, what are they called? Hang on.
Reality hackers.
Yes, the reality hackers are an actual...
Where the whole thing is that they hack into your house's wallpaper and they change it.
Reality coder is what it is, yeah.
Along with all this other stuff. Now, Kyle, would you say that the writing of this book is a little dated? Because we have advanced so much in technology ever since the book was written in 2003.
Well, I mean, for the time, it makes sense. It has a lot of, like, the 90s hackerman edge that you are to expect of, somebody that might not know everything there is to know about, about computers this time. Who the fuck uses mainframes anymore? Like, in the 1990s, like, the only people that were using mainframe computing was the federal government and maybe some large businesses that had all their systems developed in COBOL. But, by the 1990s, I mean, by the 1990s, like, you were starting to get, XHTML, you were starting to get JavaScript, you were starting to get, you were starting to get object-oriented programming and some early, like, object-oriented programming, like C, C++. Python wasn't around yet. Java was just getting started. But, this is the reason they were supposed to rule the world in the 1980s was because of all that mainframe computing. But the advent of personal computers, home programmers, and, the rise in object-oriented programming, hell, even people who were bold enough to try and build things in just machine code. And I've written that shit. That shit is hard. That is the Elder Tongue. That is why I was always a sorcerer and never a mage, is because of assembly language.
You also got 4 different types of programmer like this.
Hang on.
This is the perfect meme for you.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, you gotta drop yourself off in one box.
No, as much as it pains me to say, I am indeed the dude with the fucking beanie and the glasses, even though I don't wear a beanie and the glasses.
You start smoking. You have a can of Celsius, a monster off to the side.
There you go.
Black monster.
I only smoke cigars every now and again.
You're going to pick up the dart one day. You're not going to put it back down.
Pick up the what?
The dart.
Oh God, no.
Cigarette.
No.
Yes. And
I'm not going to be pulling a dart. Look, junk sticks don't count, okay? That's not real
now
smoke.
with the order that the convention books were written, now the irony behind it, Virtual Adepts first edition, that was the first tradition book written.
Really?
And you can see that, yeah, they did not go in alphabetical order with Mage. Just, you can say, oh, it's not the first, where if you want to get technical with me, yes, Progenitors first edition was the first book they wrote, but the Virtual Adepts was the first tradition book that was written for Mage. So these guys, a lot of sci-fi stuff was coming out in the early 90s that these guys wanted to get on immediately. And we didn't have the issue we had with the Wendigo, where, do you want the Wendigo book? Well, I'm sure hope you're willing to wait until 2003 to figure out how the fuck you're supposed to play a Wendigo. That really was bullshit that the book was just kicked down the road up until that point.
It was probably hard to get like all the information right.
I wonder why the Wendigo are one of the least popular tribes in World of the Apocalypse. Maybe it's because that book took so long to come out.
That
Maybe
probably has something to do with it, yeah.
So the Virtual Apps book comes out, and it is not written like the other books. It's got it's got no history section, but instead it's all about the present. The present is what the Virtual Apps want to talk about. And before we get into it, Kyle, how is hacking supposed to work in real life?
So typically, hacking can work in a number of different ways. The most common that I've seen in my line of work is that, you send a C-suite executive a malicious link. They're too distracted to, read the header of the message to figure out who actually sent it. They click on the link. It sends you to a redirected thing, usually from Microsoft. Is something I've seen is like you can basically get like a Microsoft sign-in page license. They give up their credentials and you're in. More recently, though, however, one of the major things that happen is that they don't even need to enter credentials because of multi-factor authentication. One thing that is possible is that when you click on a link, it steals your session token. And now stealing your session token is incredibly dangerous because they don't need your credentials. Because how I usually describe it to clients when it does happen is that, when you go to a show, show them your ID and your ticket, and they give you a wristband to let them know that you're that you're supposed to be there. But say somebody gets their wristband stolen, well then, somebody lets the bartender know, and they're like, okay, somebody's wristband got stolen. We all need to give out new wristbands. That's how token theft usually goes. Alternative to that, if you wanted to sweep for information, what you could do is you could get a program like Wireshark, find some publicly accessible Wi-Fi, and then try and basically scan through the links that are coming through the wire in order to figure out who's clicking on what. And that's, another way you could do it. And there's also, of course, social engineering methods, coercing passwords, leaving flash drives, dumpster diving. There's a whole lot of ways that you can break into a system.
You also got stuff like the Rowhammer DRAM exploit, where you just fill up a computer's RAM to the point where you can break into it. You've got the Rainbow attack, where you just repeatedly try every single password as much as you can, and you usually have like an AI system do it for you.
The thing is, there's brute forcing, and then there's a Rainbow attack. A Rainbow attack typically takes like the most predictive text patterns and then uses that to guess the password. Brute force is just basically like running it through, basically how Alan Turing broke Enigma initially.
How arbitrary code execution works, where you trick programming into reading and writing memory addresses in such a way that you can escape what the program is supposed to be, or stuff like jailbreaking, which everybody wants to do to their phones.
Yeah, I mean, that in of itself poses its own security risks, but if you know what you're doing, you'll probably be fine.
I'm thinking about just going ahead and saying like fuck it, just doing it with my Nintendo Switch, because when was the last time I played my Switch? Where I think the last thing I'm going to get for is the System Shock 2 remake, and then just go ahead and just do whatever the fuck I want with my Switch, and I no longer give a shit about Nintendo.
I mean, the only worry about that is they might brick your console remotely because they suck and I hate them.
I don't play any online games. That's what I have to worry about.
I heard somebody from Switch 2 got just straight locked out of their console. Like, they can't even power it on.
Yeah, because that thing's a big piece of shit, that's why. But you also have stuff like, Kyle, Kyle, when hacking actually works in execution, check out this link on Twitter, by the way.
Well, that's saying I don't know. I don't know if I want to.
No, oh no, this is funny. This is actually funny.
Let me copy this in and do this because I know how to do this.
You know how to find a loophole around this?
Well, yeah. Security shut down by hackers straight out of it. Okay.
This is Iran's Alcatraz. Now, like fast forward like 12 seconds into the video. Look at what happens.
All right, hang on. I'm gonna post this so people can see it.
Yeah,
Never mind. The page doesn't exist
because you're not signed in.
Oh yeah. So 12 seconds in.
It's this fucking guy.
Guy just sitting. Oh yeah. Screen flickers. Blue screen of death.
BSODs. The red screens. Notice this is a super advanced prison in Iran. Windows 7, Kyle.
Oh Jesus Christ! No wonder he was. No wonder they blue screened it.
This video is only 4 years old.
I would like to remind everybody that they should go and find a Windows 11 license, or if you're on Windows 10, it should prompt you to install an update for Windows 11. Make sure that you're running at least an 11th gen processor with 16 gigs of RAM at least.
And what I find really funny about that video is that this guy's initial reaction where, oh, maybe if I change the chair I'm sitting in, it will fix the problem.
Yeah. Technology scary is the one thing I found out about working where I work.
Would you like to tell me why I'm supposed to be scared of Iran again? Why I'm supposed to be scared of these guys? This is history's biggest paper tiger, man. They're not going to do shit about anything.
You do realize that all the computers in the federal government also run Windows 7, right?
Yeah. So... You know what? We're just run by a bunch of idiots, right?
We are, as my dad once put it, Forrest Gump in an Iron Man world.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, getting into the Virtual Adepts history, let's go ahead. Now that we've actually told you what hacking looks like, how it actually works with the Virtual Adepts is the same way it works in System Shock. Kyle, you remember that?
Yes. You put your brain into the computer.
And then you go around in a first-person shooter where you fly around between different geometric shapes until you eventually reach the point, and then you shoot it, and then you take over the system.
Basically, it's like the Bentley hacking minigame in Sly Cooper.
And that's how the Virtual Adepts work. Or how would you like to invade a computer the way that you do in BioShock?
Oh, by turning pipes around?
Turning pipes.
Yeah.
Do you actually know why they? Do you know why that's actually in the game?
Why is that in the game?
There was a holdover from an old idea for BioShock where every single machine in Rapture ran off of a human brain. So what that was supposed to be is that you were putting Adam directly into that brain, and the brain would thank you by making everything at a discount. That's what that was supposed to be.
That's kind of crazy.
But then they dropped the plot point. But yeah, it's the same kind of technology that we would see in Warhammer 40K, where everything runs off of a human brain instead of an AI. So getting into it. So Second Edition's history is honestly really dry. So I'm just going to go ahead and just get through Second Edition's history, so we can get into what I think is the real meat and potatoes of the Virtual Adepts, the present, where stuff gets really interesting when they change their names to Virtual Adepts. So the Virtual Adepts in Second Edition don't try beating around the bush saying, oh, we were founded when a man first rolled a wheel down a hill like they did with the Iteration X. They said, no, we didn't actually come into existence for years and years until this Greek guy called Archimedes and Euclid decided, we're going to count on abacus. We're going to make shapes. We're going to measure stuff. That's when they came into existence. So you have it. Archimedes and Euclid were witches. Amazing.
Yep.
But they also had a second start in China. What's a really good thing that China invented?
Gunpowder?
Algebra.
Oh, I thought that was the Arabic Empire and the Baghdad House of Wisdom.
The ball got started with China.
Ah.
So they started. The Middle East would then finish and codify it, but that idea started in China. And so the whole X equals Y equals, those kind of problems that start over in China. So finding out what the mystery number is supposed to be. So we can say that the virtual adept started when somebody counted to 10. You could say.
Yes, that makes sense.
But they figure out, how many fingers do I have? How many toes do I have? Well, what if I count to 21? Oh my god, you're amazing. Where, how would you consider numbers to be magical?
In a way, yeah. I mean, like we invented numbers don't necessarily exist in nature. Each number is a concept that we use in order to make sense of the world around us.
Oh, are you sure there's no numbers in nature?
Is there?
Are you sure about that?
Well, I mean, like the idea of numbers in nature, like we can tell, like say, a 4-leaf clover has 4 leaves on it. We can count the number of stones, on the side of the river, but nature's ambivalent to the idea of how much.
Well, you also got stuff that's universal in size, like pi, where trying to figure out the circumference of a circle that goes off a universal number. The golden ratio, the fractals, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Where using numbers, we're able to quantify that there's stuff we can measure in nature that fits a pattern that we've discovered. It's not that we made a system to explain nature, it's that we discovered a system that nature runs off of. And
that's an excellent point, yeah.
Through understanding that system, we can eventually quantify and predict when something's going to happen. Ryan, can you tell me what society would look like if we just did not count?
Honestly, I don't think so.
That wouldn't be able to work now, would it?
We wouldn't have society.
Where, like for my job in particular, where I'm all sales-based, where numbers are a part of my job, where I need to constantly look at sales data, cross-reference it, measure it with past weeks, and forecast what an order is supposed to be whenever I go to an account. So this is this is a part of my job that's unavoidable. And thanks to it, if you're smart about your job, my job in particular, if you're able to accurately predict and know what an account is, you're not going to have any sort of issues or bullshit come your way. Which is why I hope I did last week, because Kyle, I just got out of the hardest month of work I've had in my life. Oh my god, the stuff that happened in June in particular this year.
Yeah, it did seem like a rough month for you.
And I've never worked that hard in my life. I've never worked that hard. I've done warehouse jobs. I've done stocking jobs. I've never done something like that before. Man. And with the virtual adepts, where just time would go on, where in the Dark Ages, they would come into the fold of the Order of Reason, where what controlled the world during the Dark Ages? The Church. And did the Church like people knowing stuff? No.
Yes.
Knowledge was power.
No.
Knowledge was power, and knowledge had to be hoarded by the Church. You were not allowed to have a school or teach people concepts unless you were ordained and employed by the Church. That's how it worked back in the day. So if you wanted to do this, if you wanted to learn, you would have to have a whole secret school and everything, and you could be prosecuted and jailed for doing that.
See, the Church of Ryan doesn't hoard information.
Where information is known for everyone.
Information wants to be free.
Yeah.
These guys would be brought into the fold, where the Order of Reason would walk up to them, the good old NWO, and said, "Hey, do you want to, have a learning institution that's not through the Church?" And the virtual app said, "Yes, we don't want to have to go through the Church or any of this shit." They said, "Well, join us. We're starting something called the Order of Reason. And even though we start in the Church, we're eventually going to cut the Church loose. So we're on your side. You believe us, right? Yeah, we believe you. Okay, then join us." And they would form under the name the Difference Engineers. How nerdy is that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Where I don't think they would have... No, they didn't even go by that name until 1851. Where, sorry, I gave you the wrong name. I don't even think they had a name. I think they were just the Order of Reason. That was it.
They were just just part of the group.
Yeah, they were just part of the group. Where, look at the original Lapid Order of Reason. Did these guys even have a name beforehand? Celestial Masters, Cabal Thought, Craft Masons, High Society. You weren't the Cassian Circle, were you? That's something else. That was what the progenitors were called. High Guild, no, it's not your name. Craft Masons that's That's the Syndicate. Were you the High Guild? Were you?
I don't know.
No.
It's up to you.
No, they weren't. That was also the Syndicate. The Syndicate was known under 2 different names. Yeah, they really just did not have a name. They were just the Order of Reason, and that was it. But, well, you can imagine who they were working with during that time. Iteration X. That's basically who they were back in the day. They were just members that were brought into Iteration X.
Yeah, pretty much.
And as time went on, they would not form their own identity until they became the Difference Engineers all the way in 1823, when one Anthony Babbage created something called the Difference Engine. Now, who was Anthony Babbage? You don't know who this is, do you?
A bitch.
No, I do not.
All right. So, looking into this, basically Anthony Babbage was the guy that said, in the lore of Mage, hey, maybe we can look at all this stuff going on that's causing humanity so much grief, and we can try to predict what's going to happen to people. And they thought, you know what? That's actually a good system we got. Let's go ahead and let's research further into it. And so Anthony Babbage doesn't come up in first edition. He's just a second edition character only, so I believe. I don't think he's that important to the story, but either way, the Difference Engineers come into play, where instead of building stuff like they did with Iteration X, they become guys that say, maybe we can use numbers to our advantage. Maybe we can approach the Iteration X and say, hey, these are the measurements and units and materials that you need for your job. We can go to the Syndicate and say, if you do this, you'll make this much money in the future. We can go to progenitors and quantify how much medicine they're going to need to handle a plague. We can quantify stuff for the NWO, for the Void Engineers. They were basically the accountants for the Order of Reason. Now, that doesn't sound too glamorous, does it?
No, but it's lethally important in society.
Now, Ryan, explain the blockchain to me. In cryptocurrency.
I don't know.
Exactly right. Exactly. The average person doesn't know this kind of shit.
It's okay, I don't know that shit either.
So you need...
I'm guessing that it's a block of code and then chained up with another block of code.
Well, that's what the name would entail, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But there's a reason I haven't gotten into cryptocurrency. It's because of stuff like this.
I haven't gotten into it because they keep telling me when I go to do my taxes, hey, have you touched the cryptocurrency? I'm like, no. They're like, good.
We'll tax the shit out of you if you do.
Yeah, basically.
And so with this kind of stuff, when you start getting to really abstract numbers like this, you need a dedicated guide to tell you what this means. Where you ever have a moment where you were in school and you were sitting down with your teacher and you said, when are we ever going to use this outside class?
Yeah, a lot of the time.
Yeah,
Hell,
I was going to say, Kyle, don't you tell me you haven't said this before.
Yeah, I already know. Why? Because now I'm a programmer.
Now, how important is sine and cosine when it comes to 3D models?
Very.
Where everything is based off of polygons. Where if you want to go and become a programmer, yes, you're going to have to know this.
Or you could stick it in the magic blender machine and let that do it.
Or say, hey, Kyle, a screw fell out of your chair. I could just buy a screw from a hardware store and just work automatically, right?
No, you gotta take the screw out of the chair, and then you gotta take it to the hardware store and make sure that the size matches.
And then when you get really talented, you can just tell from the screw, but just by looking at it.
Yeah. Or hear me out. You take out your little calipers, you measure everything, and you do up your own little metal screw.
Yeah, but I don't know the equipment for that.
You managed to make it yourself. And now we're at the point where you can just pay somebody where... I told you I had to fix my Nintendo 64 manually because it oxidized on the inside. And I had to order a super specific screwdriver from Amazon to get the screws out for it because that screw seemingly only ever existed for the Nintendo 64. It was a screw that was made just for it.
Yep. Sounds about right.
Thankfully, somebody still makes that screwdriver.
See, that's why you take out all the screws and then put in your own screws.
I put on my own screws. Build it myself. I can just take out the software and boards inside of it and just make my own console.
No. Like, so you take the little drill bit that gets out strip screws, you put that in, you unscrew it, and then you put in your own screws.
Ryan, the drill bit didn't fit in the hole. It was that narrow. That was my
They've got
experience
stuff for
fixing
that.
it. And so you have the difference
Most of the
engineers.
thing.
In 1851, they would change their name again to call themselves the Analytical Reckoners. Now, how lame of a name is this?
Very.
Analytical Reckoners.
It's okay. You should have seen some of the names of some of the camp names that I tried coming up with.
It's hard to come up with some of these names, right? It's hard to come up with some snappy stuff.
Yeah, like I think the one that I have that I'm workshopping right now is called Deliverance.
Where when I was making I'm not going to my own horn for too long. The Summon Vine, Kyle. How many names did I draft for that tribe before I finally made one?
You drafted like a half dozen of them. I
Yeah,
do
like
remember
a
you
lot.
messaging me
That
about it.
group went through 40 different names before I finally came with
Jesus.
Summon Vine. Yes. And that name just directly translates to the Harmonizers. That's what that means. And in 1880, the Reckoners would finally change their name to something punchier and snappier, the Virtual Adepts. And now we can get into the really juicy stuff with history. So let's go ahead into this. So Kyle, when you look at first edition, the entire history section of this book is written in letters. Where, did you not like the whole two-way dialogue with a scheme with every mage book we've read so far? Well, now we can just read them piece by piece from people that are telling the truth and not just subjective, where these letters are actual and factual. And also, let me just say that the artwork in Virtual Adepts first and second edition is fucking awesome. I love these pictures. The artist really outdid themselves with the work here. We get a whole picture of Alan Turing being killed by Iteration X in this picture, in his book.
Hang on, send me that picture. I need to see that.
Let's see, let me go. Let me back up to it. Let's see. Look at this. We have a whole picture about QAnon in this book too.
That's terrible.
20 years before they became a group. Amazing, right? You read all that stuff about government corruption, you just can't handle it. It just breaks your fucking mind. You just can't handle all that shit. It's what happens to you because it's a whole thing with, like, people want to talk about like mental health and everything, and like Alex Jones. I mean, I blame that guy for a lot of shit where he is guilty of a lot of shit. But when your job is that you read the most fucked up stuff that governments do all day, every day, and you find out your own government is involved in it, you're not going to be able to handle that. In all honesty, you're just not going to be able to take it. So what happens is you become an alcoholic just like him, and then you do what he did with the conspiracy shit. I'm not going to get into it because I don't want this video getting paid for anything.
All right, too late now, buddy.
I ain't going to say those words out loud. That is the tweet I was sending you earlier. Let me go ahead and get you this picture. Alan Turing getting shot in the side of the head. Yeah, here's your picture.
Oh, yeah, that's fucked up.
That's how he died. That's how he died. He didn't die from those chemical castrators or by his own hand. It was Iteration X who did it. Yeah, we get hard confirmation in this book it was Iteration X who killed Alan Turing.
Yep. Yeah, it makes sense.
And we're going to go over as to why they did it soon. Now, the first letter in this book, when you read it, I'm getting back to where I was in it. Let me just get a section. I'm still gushing over the artwork in this book. It gives you like 5 goat pictures back to back to back. Now, funny thing about this is that it's not given to you by the perspective of a virtual adept. A virtual adept does not talk to you for the first 2 chapters of the book. It is information that comes from the Council of 9 from an outside perspective, which I think is incredibly useful in this book. Meanwhile, the second edition book, it's 2 virtual adepts scratching each other's balls the entire time, like blowing up their own egos.
Well,
and I really do hate it. I really do hate it. So our first letter comes from January 15, 1850, where it's this letter going, I have completed my observation on the difference engineers as per request. This odd little clique has virtually no importance at the moment, and will never be much of anything besides an offshoot of the Sons of Ether. We can safely discredit them as they're just talking about numbers and are never going to really go anywhere and are just going to assist us for the rest of their lives. And that was basically written by a member of the NWO. At least I think that's what the character was supposed to be. Our next letter comes from July 20, 1886. And it says, Hey, have you heard of Alexander Graham Bell? He invented the telephone, and it's awesome. And we're talking to each other on the phone all day, every day, and we can't just put this thing down. It's awesome. Well, we can't imagine what life is going to be like without it. And neither can anyone else living in in the world now, because now everyone is going to have one of these. Yes, and we can qualify it too, where we're going to say by the time that 1910 comes around, every household in America will have a phone. Now, Kyle, how important of an invention is the phone?
Alex, well, the invention of the telephone was revolutionary, allowing people to, talk to each other over vast distances instantaneously. It was a
And now, can you
revolutionary
imagine
technology.
what your life would be like without a phone?
I would not know any of the people that I know today.
Like even not even internet, but just making a call to somebody.
Yeah, no, the only it would be back like the olden days. The only way I would get to know people is if I went to church.
We'd have to go over and meet people in public instead of, like, say for clients, where part of my job is calling the clients, and sometimes you'll even have a landline in the store, where if I'm trying to call a place where like Google says, oh, that's a landline, Kyle, nobody's going to use that landline anymore. Most people have just ripped the cord out of their walls and aren't even touching the phone anymore. It's got to be a cell phone. But at the same time, being able to know what a guy needs, if I need to make a quick edit to his order or anything like that, it is so useful, this little invention you got, that I really can't imagine what life is going to be like without this. And back in the day, Kyle, when you were a truck driver, you had to clock in to your job by calling your office from a landline at your first stop.
Yep.
That's how it worked back in the 90s. And as it turns out, the NWO just quickly eats their words. And June 10th, 1890, another letter comes out saying, we, the Virtual Adepts, have the world in the palm of your hand now, where if you follow this step-by-step plan, we will ensure for you that you will conquer the world by 1980. So, will we have flying machines in the next 10 years? Yes, a 9% chance. Will we have hacking devices and tracking devices for everything and everything? Yes, and it will be done by 1920. Will we have reliable radios that we can use? Yes, by 1920. We'll have self-powered, highly explosive bombs that shoot themselves on a rocket by 1950. And we will have the world under our control through hypnosis, through radio and television by 1960. And then you will no longer have to worry about anything, and we can all just kick our feet up and control the world by 1980 or 1984 by the latest. I don't want to pick that date.
That's
Kyle,
just what the timetable said.
Say the line, Kyle.
Literally 1984.
There we go. Thank you. It was too stupid for us to not bring up.
No, we had to. That was required in this episode.
And then Nebula looks over and says, well, thank you, Virtual Adepts. I guess we're just on the fast track of taking over the world now. And there it is. Consensus is going to be ours. The world will be ours. The next letter doesn't really say anything too important. August 20, 1910, from Iteration X to the conventions. We would like to file a complaint about the Virtual Adepts writing and talking to science fiction writers. H.G. Wells was writing books that he was not supposed to be writing about science fiction. We want you to punish the Virtual Adepts, please. Isn't that just a bitch move from Iteration X, in all honesty?
Yeah, a little bit, but, authoritarians, as we know, are very fragile egos.
At the same time, this stuff helps with your consensus. It throws smoke in people's faces about how this stuff actually works, too. Where you're able to get away with vulgar magic in Mage because of this shit. And the NWO response was saying, well, we weren't going to respond to this complaint until you brought up that the Virtual Adepts helped write a book about a little boy that flew a rocket ship to a moon, and the moon was made out of cheese, and the little boy took a bite out of it. So we will discipline the Virtual Adepts about science fiction writing. That's a grievous crime, right?
And it's like that scene from A Christmas Story where Ralphie shouts out Schwartz's name after he said a swear word.
And that's
and
it.
then the Iteration X is in the corner as the NWO comes in like, what did I do?
You gotta love not just like fucking bitches to Iteration X's, man. This really does make you see that entire convention in a negative light after reading this book.
I mean, I already did,
And
but you know.
like the level of confidence that the Virtual Adepts have in the first edition book, just the level of confidence. But they knew they were going to. They knew they were right. Is what I mean to say.
Yep.
November 24, 1924. I must report to you the effects of the temperance movement in North America. A group of religious fanatics has managed to get a bill passed prohibiting the sale of alcohol in the United States. We, the members of the Virtual Apps, like to tell you what a fucking stupid idea this was, NWO, where we have the numbers and the data for you right here. Yes, there is a 100% demand for alcohol in the United States. Every man in the United States wants this, and even the women want alcohol. Now, not only have you done this, but you've greatly empowered organized crime in America and have delayed the timetable because of what you have done. And if you want to know if anyone else disagrees with this, yes, the syndicate disagrees, and they themselves are running bootlegging operations. So we would like to ask you to write an amendment to get rid of that amendment. And then what happened, Kyle? They did exactly that.
And they did. It took them 10 years to get the memo, but they did.
It was the Virtual Adepts who managed to lift prohibition.
Because they had the right numbers.
Is there a secret ally with the Fianna at play?
I mean, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I think it'd be rather nice to think that, thus with such differing ideologies can still work together. Maybe the children of Gaia got a point.
And then another letter was sent a few years later to the Syndicate, saying, "Hello, Syndicate, Virtual Apps here. What the fuck did you guys do with the stock market? Can you explain?"
Oh, well, we speculated that the market would be, great forever. And then somebody said, well, what if it isn't? So we figured, well, let's see what would happen.
And then what happened is that America is in the shitter, the United Kingdom is even worse, and all that progress you were making with Germany has been reduced to zero and then brought down into the negatives. So we, the Virtual Apps, would like to point out that you're fucking stupid and you should listen to us more often.
We'll
I'm
look into it.
I'm really paraphrasing with that letter, but that's basically what it says.
And then they'll get we'll look into it. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me read this one verbatim. All right. January 4th, 1940. From the New World Order to the conventions. Many of you have been following the war in Europe. Adolf Hitler seems to have found a feasible solution for his country's problems, economically speaking.
Oh my God. The balls on these writers, man. I'm shocked.
I'm not.
Oh my God.
We here at the NWO see this as an opportunity to unite the European governments under one flag, the swastika of Germany. Ultimately, such unification will lead to a single world government, as recommended by the Virtual Adepts in earlier communication. We will call a symposium to discuss matters of importance within the year.
Oh my God.
And the next letter right after that is written October 15th, 1941, from the Virtual App saying, yeah, we really screwed the pooch on that one. We thought this was a good idea. We didn't think he was actually serious about the genocide. We thought he was just going to, make some people secondary class citizens. But we've realized that was also a massive fucking mistake. We never should have co-signed with this guy. And that these ideas of a master race and the Ubermensch are really fucking stupid. We denounce his country. We denounce the man himself. And we also like to denounce Iteration X for giving these people weapons. And not only did they give Germany weapons, but they built the trains, the train tracks, the camps, the ovens, and the gas chambers that are being used to kill the Jews. So, yes.
Good job,
Joseph
IX.
Mengele was a member of Iteration X.
Oh my God.
Exactly. And did the NWO and the rest of conventions even respond to this? No. Not even that. Instead, the NWO replies on December 1st saying, yeah, Japan did Pearl Harbor, and now it looks like America's going to get involved in the war. Is this going to throw off our plans with Germany? Can you crunch those numbers for us, please?
Motherfucker, we sent you that letter a year ago.
Yeah. I love my technocracy evil. I love him this fucking evil, where I know Mage the podcast wanted to say there's a really nuanced like philosophy to the tenocracy? No.
They are
No.
just cold corporate evil.
No, like the NWO was completely okay with the Holocaust. That's where they knew it was happening and co-signed it. Exactly.
Meanwhile, the virtual adepts realized what they'd done, wrote up their higher ups, and were like, "Hey, man, things are going really, really bad, and millions of people are dying."
And then 3 years later, January 20, 1944, the virtual apps say, "Okay, if you're not going to take us seriously about the genocide front, here's a whole dossier of evidence that Nazi Germany has gotten involved with the occult and the witchcraft of the Nefandi. Will you take us seriously now?" And then it did. And then...
Wow, it took us bringing up reality deviancy to actually fucking do something, you useless piece of shit.
They were perfectly okay with World War II. I want that to be known. So everybody must have spazzed about the fucking Fenris with the Swords of Heimdall. Now, with Paradox Interactive, how are you guys going to handle Mage 5th Edition with the Tenocracy?
Oh, they're not. They're going to butcher it and make it,
no.
a bunch of gay communists.
They're not even going to write Mage 5th Edition. It's just going to be Mage the Awakening 3rd Edition under 5th Edition's name. That's what it's going to be. Because you know they're too fucking chicken shit to even bring this up.
Everyone is.
It's not going to happen. Where Iteration X, the NWO, the Progenitors, and the Syndicate all directly participated in the Holocaust.
Yep.
Yes. Yes, 100%. This is canon. Yeah.
Yep.
And February 17, 1945, Alan Turing corrects the Enigma code. Hooray! And now it looks like Nazi Germany is going to lose no matter what, now that we've cracked the code. Cool. And then Iteration X writes a whole letter saying, hey, NWO, your Alan Turing guy, he's looking into something called virtual reality. I think it's evil. I think you should investigate them. And then 3 years later, December 12th, 1950, the Syndicate writes over to Alan Turing, says, we've heard you've been running and making something called virtual reality. This is your last warning to stop before we kill you. March 10th, 1954, NWO gives the order to its men in black, kill Alan Turing.
Yeah, there's only one problem with that. He already handed the source code to Christopher Strachey.
Exactly. And then June 20, 1955, the virtual apps quit the Tenocracy and leave. And then NWO writes a letter to every other remaining convention saying, you know that entire timetable that the virtual apps wrote? It's all gone. That entire plan is now gone. We cannot achieve these numbers without the virtual adepts. So the mind control project that we were doing, the Wi-Fi, the internet commercial that we were, the internet plan that we were doing, the global domination that we were planning on doing, all that's gone. All the plans for doing that they're gone. The virtual apps took them all. So we're screwed. And now it looks like they're going to join the Traditions A&D now, and it looks like we might actually run the risk of losing the war for Ascension and Consensus. So I want to go back over those letters. So, if these guys just left Alan Turing alone, they would have been fine. The killing of Alan Turing is what did it. So why were the virtual apps so big and virtual reality? Because, like Iteration X and the Void Engineers, they realized that the Umbra was a tool that could be used. We discussed in the Umbra episode, do you remember, Ryan, where we had an entire cyber realm in the Umbra? Whereas it turns out, the internet was not made, it was discovered. As it turns out, it's a place that you can hop into, you can go to, and you can visit.
Like we
you remember
are
this,
now.
right? Yeah. So the metaverse was always a thing.
It's a series of tubes.
And if you just let Alan Turing step sideways, you would have been fine. But Iteration X, now why doesn't Iteration X want to step sideways again?
Well, that's outside of consensus.
Take over the Umbra.
It's because Computer, their god in the machine, commanded them to never research the Spirit Sphere. That's why.
Ah.
So you can imagine what would happen if a virtual adept came into contact with Computer.
It was like, oh, that doesn't look good. Let me rip its wires out and change it.
And then the virtual adepts go to the NWO, where as we have established in the past letters, the virtual adepts, if they see something, they say something. They go to the NWO and the Syndicate and say, Iteration X has been in contact with the digital god that goes against your idea of consensus. Iteration X would have been toast. You realize this?
Yep, and then they never would have invented Threatenol, and then everything would have been fine.
So, in order to cover their tracks, Iteration X demonizes virtual reality, runs over to the Syndicate and NWO about it, and then when Alan Turing says, I've done nothing wrong, which he hasn't, they kill him for it. And then the virtual adepts catch on to what happened, quit the Tenocracy, and now the entire timetable is gone. This is what I mean. The Tenocracy would have taken over the world, and it would have prevented Gehenna, prevented Apocalypse, and would have achieved Mass Ascension had it not been for that one mistake. If you could turn back time, if you could find a way to take back all the words that hurt me, what would you say? That would have been the difference they would have made. They would have. This is the biggest mistake and biggest regret of the Tenocracy, killing Alan Turing.
Wow.
Because if the virtual apps were still on your side, you would have won. Victory was in your hands, and you fucked it because of that. Which I think really goes to show the whole hubris behind the Tenocracy. You're so convinced that you've got this in the bag that you make stupid, boneheaded mistakes like that, thinking you could afford it when it ruins everything. Like, I don't know, Cersei Jones setting off the nukes in the first city, where we're just going to play with nuclear bombs in the Shadowlands. Nothing's going to happen after that, right? It's not like we're going to cause the Week of Nightmares or any shit like that.
Yeah.
It's not like we're going to cause Threatenol to exist with Autochthonia being out in space and the line of fire of it. It's not like we're going to lose all of our avatars. It's not like going all in on computers is a really stupid idea. No, it's fine. It's fine if we just make a few mistakes every now and then.
And then those mistakes turn into just a world-ending whirlwind of chaos and destruction that has ruined any chance they have of ruling the world.
And now the Void Engineers have it all dropped off in their lap for them to clean up.
Basically, and it's only a matter of time before the Void Engineers also go, okay, no, fuck this, you're dealing with it now. Good luck cleaning up the Earth with all the frickin' biomass being consumed. I'm gonna go live on another planet. Fuck you.
Where they have a whole escape plan and everything in Ascension.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So how did the Virtual Adepts join the Traditions? Well, in September 23rd, 1959, one Julian Spence of the Sons of Ether calls the rest of the Traditions and says, hey, I just got a call from the Virtual Adepts. They want to join us. And, the Bettini
Everybody else went,
back.
Who the fuck are the Virtual Adepts?
No, hold on, man. We know these guys. They're from the Tenocracy, but they're cool. Where they weren't on board with everything that they were doing there. The only people that they didn't have a fight with were the Progenitors and Void Engineers, but they hate Iteration X, they hate the NWO, and they hate the Syndicate.
Okay, let's hear what he has to say.
They send a letter out to them on July 10th, 1961. I think it was... It's of course was the Order of Hermes heading this, saying, we've been talking about this for 2 years, and we're going to let you join the conventions under these 4 conditions. 1, you'll be under probation for 5 years. 2, every bit of information you had about this timetable, you will give it to us. 3, you're going to occupy the seat of correspondence. We want that to be your main focus for now until the end of time. 4, you're going to provide us with regular reports every week about everything you do. Then the next day, they reply, we accept.
Yep.
And then those 5 years go by, and then the Virtual Apps join the Traditions.
And
Amazing,
they have
right?
every detail about the NWO's timetable.
And not only that, but while they're working for the Traditions, the Virtual Adepts hate the Tenocracy. You saw in the relationships, right?
Oh yeah, very much.
Where they'll even differentiate between the conventions. Every single one of them is guilty of Alan Turing's death in their eyes. Where they knew that virtual reality could have made a life better for everybody. Where, think about virtual reality for a second. Kyle, are you ready for it?
No, I kind of like regular reality myself.
Now imagine this, where, say, you create an entire world within a computer. As long as that computer exists, your body will die, but your brain can continue living on in a machine. Now the way it's going to be explained to Virtual Adepts is that this is it feels real. Sure, you only exist in the form of thought, but you can make more world while you're in virtual reality, where every man essentially becomes as God inside of this virtual reality, where you can make your own world where everything runs the way that you want it to, and you never die. And that's it.
Well, as Duclaut once said, I think, therefore I am.
Which is not that similar, not too different from the idea of mass ascension that the Order of Hermes has, Kyle. It's
Really?
basically the same. Yes. Where the Order of Hermes wants to come to a complete understanding of physical sciences and use that to make all men as God. That's the idea of mass ascension with the Hermetic Order. So there's not any sort of cavern or like canyon of difference between the Virtual Adepts and the Order of Hermes. Now, is there?
Not a whole lot, no. Matter of fact,
It's
they
just-
mentioned that.
It's just a difference between, do you want your messages to be private or do you want group text only? That's the difference between the two, and that's it. So, the Virtual Adepts with virtual reality realized that back in the 1960s, we could have had a world where everybody could have been as God, and we would have beaten the Hermetic Order to the punch of mass ascension. But the NWO ruined the whole thing. So, now, we're going to create this technology for ourselves. Now, Ryan, have you seen Tron? Did you
Yes.
watch? Have you seen Tron Legacy?
Maybe that's the one I watched.
Now,
The most recent one.
That's Tron Legacy, where that's the Virtual Adepts. Where there's a whole scene in it too, where I forget what the characters are called, but it's the main character and his
Programs?
dad talking. It's the main character and his dad talking and saying, so where are you now with technology? Oh, we have like iOS and blah blah blah, and they're saying, so wireless technology, I already made that. I made that years ago. I made that 20 years ago. And he's already set this virtual reality world where he was basically his own god of his own world. That's what the Virtual Adepts are doing. Where Tron existed to the Virtual Adepts in the 60s. That's where they were after Alan Turing died in 1955. Between 1955 and 1959, they were hiding in virtual reality, nursing their wounds, thinking about what they're going to do next, while doing secret attacks against the Technocracy. After that period, with the traditions at their back, and in 1966, now they're going all in on attacking the Technocracy, where they hate Technocracy, and that just they live to spite the Technocracy by this point. Their idea of mass ascension, it's already at hand, where they're just refining it to the point where it can be used by everybody. They're not done updating it. They're still in the beta stage of their 10th sphere. So that's what I mean, Kyle. Like, yes, this is the closest group there is to achieving mass ascension. I'm not kidding you when I say that.
Well, that makes
It's almost
sense, but
here.
wouldn't that also cause the Weaver to ascend?
It could, it probably could.
But the
So-
difference being is that the Virtual Adepts are more so focusing on the, creative aspect of molding a digital world.
And reasonably, they could outrun the Weaver too.
That would
It's
be a
possible.
best case scenario.
So you exist in your own bubble, away from Gaia, away from the Triad, where it's just you and everyone else. If you want to interact with anybody, you have the option to. If you want to be an isolationist forever, you can do that. Just, your life is the way you want it to be. It's Singularity from Evangelion, Kyle, basically.
Right.
Where
So, like,
it's episodes,
which episode was
episodes
that
25 and
when
26.
it turns into a family drama or a family comedy?
where name a life you want to live in virtual reality.
I don't know, living on that world Cora that I build would be pretty nice.
And you can live there for as many years as you want. You can simulate it as many times as you want. You can hit the reset button as many times as you want. And you can just do that forever. And when you finally get sick of the idea, you can just make a new idea in a new world.
Pretty
that's it.
sick, not gonna lie.
And that's it. That's what reality can just be forever for you. And that's the case with the virtual apps too. And with the rocket ship on the launch pad, so to speak, they're no longer concerned with researching the 10th sphere. They're going all in on destroying everything the Technocracy has built. The IRA, Virtual Adepts. Not just Aviana, but the Virtual Adepts are behind it too. White Hat terrorist attacks, the Virtual Adepts. anything involving just taking down anything involving anything Iteration X has built, it's Virtual Adepts. They're hackers with a vengeance. They want to see everything they've built destroyed. They sent out a whole message saying, hey, Iteration X built something called the Hit Mark 7. Here's the plan as to how we're going to destroy it. And if you want to know why the Iteration X has to keep making new and new and new hit marks up until Mark 13, it's because of the Virtual Adepts. That's why.
Yep.
Now, we continue with these letters until 1984, where, this is going to be the year that the Virtual Adepts will have controlled the world, if they stay on their side. And, funny enough, it's the Cult of Ecstasy that contacts the Virtual Adepts about this, saying, we need you guys to really pump the brakes. You guys just hacked and attacked and shut down NORAD. You're bringing on way too much heat to the traditions. You're going to get sleepers against this if you keep doing this. And the Virtual Adepts click that email as read and go right back to what they're doing. Amazing.
Yep. It's like, yeah, cool story, bro. Anyway, I'm going to go back to finding out the nuclear launch codes. Give me a minute.
And they would continue to do this up until an incident called the Whiteout. Now, you remember the Week of Nightmares about how bad it was for the Tenocracy?
Yes.
It wasn't just the Tenocracy, it was also the Virtual Adepts. Where, what was happening in your virtual reality? Well, when Ravnos woke up and was casting those storms, one of those storms shut off the servers to the Virtual Adepts reality, where it just turned off and turned right back on. Except you didn't log out.
It did an unclean shutdown, basically.
And you didn't log out.
Yep.
So everyone that was in virtuality during that time had their brains fry. Yeah.
Yep. Unclean shutdowns are bad. This is why you invest in a UPS.
This is why you invest in a surge protector.
Yep. Get yourself like a APC UPS or a CyberPower UPS, and that'll save a whole lot of headache. Just go ahead and get that, plug it into whatever you got.
And after that happened, the virtual apps are a lot of them died in one day. And so because of that, their efforts against the Tenocracy have significantly slowed. But thanks to the data we're living in now, Kyle, how easy is it to become a virtual app now?
Honestly, I could do it right now if I felt like it.
Easy enough, right?
Yep.
Where
I go to a coffee shop, hook up to the Wi-Fi, and then search links until I have information.
I remember the Mage the podcast was saying that they had a guy on that said, oh yeah, the Order of Hermes is definitely the most populated tradition. There's definitely all these people joining the Order of Hermes after reading Harry Potter.
Yes.
No, dude. It's the Virtual Adepts, man. It's the Virtual Adepts. It's so easy to do this shit now. Kyle, I know there's a whole bunch of people freaking out about AI taking over the world and everything. I have been using ChatGPT just about every damn day now, and I'm getting so much information, so much shit off of it now.
Yes.
Where you remember that whole assembly project that you had, where I just took that project, put it through ChatGPT, it wrote the code, I put it in that simulator project, and it fucking worked.
You put it in the compiler.
So if I wanted to start programming, if I had no talent, which I don't, I have no talent, and I wanted to start getting into programming, I could do it now.
Basically, yeah.
Will I be any good at it? I don't know.
You might not learn a whole lot, but you're not actually. No, you wouldn't be learning it, but you would be using it.
Along with all this stuff about, say, I'm asking it where if I'm stuck in a game, I ask it a question. It pulls up multiple game guides about how to get through a level. If I'm trying to figure out whether or not, I remember we were talking about Black Dog Games making card games, and they were bringing up stuff like Yu-Gi-Oh, but I said, now let me go into a deep dive about this. So I looked up aggressively monetized card games, and Chronicle from 2006 was the first result. After reading about it, yeah, it sounds bad. It was a really shitty game that had no business being a card game.
Yep.
And just the amount of information I have access to now, where I am ready for this shit. I am ready to live in a world that's got all this technology in it. Where I know so many people are
out of a fucking
so many
job.
people are afraid of the boogeyman. I am so ready for this kind of world. No. And we've said this before, Kyle, that with this whole artificial intelligence business, it's going to separate the boys from the men. Where the people that have talent are going to be fine, the people that are hacks aren't going to get anywhere.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair.
I'm going to separate wheat from chaff. Where artists like Victor, he's going to be fine.
Yes.
He's going to be absolutely fine.
Can't. A machine cannot make what Victor can make. It can make something that looks kind of like it, but it won't have the same care that Vic has to it.
But those artists with no fucking talent on Fur Affinity that want to charge you $80 for a flat color, they're in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
Yeah, given how easy their style is to replicate sometimes.
Hey guys, I'm selling pictures. I can paint them myself. Flat colors, only I can do.
Flat colors.
$100 each.
and then you're one of those artists where I pay you for the commission and you just never deliver it.
No. I'll absolutely deliver it. It's just going to look like this. Hold on. I'll paint it up and show you guys.
It's going to be an MS Paint, right?
No. There's an app called Paint that I'm going to use. Ready?
All right, let's see it. I'm here for it, Ryan.
Yes. Give me your abstract art.
I have a drawing tablet.
With the powers of computers, Kyle, anyone can do anything.
Actually, I have a drawing tablet. It's just that no decent drawing software is friendly with Linux.
Upload file.
Upload the file. Let's see what Ryan made. This is our new segment. It's Ryan's art gallery.
Shit, where did I save that?
We went to the art gallery in Providence. You were super into the wallpaper exhibit.
There was a lot of hell yeah.
There it is.
That's how to do it right there.
$100 every.
This is Ryan's NFTs. It's Ryan's non-fungible tokens.
It's just like a different shaped stick figure every time. The arms are a little bit longer.
Different
the legs
line
are
length,
a little bit
different
longer.
line curves.
Here is a depiction of a dragonborn.
Okay,
Dragonborn.
Okay.
He is Dovahkiin.
Sorry, not dragonborn.
Is the Dovahkiin.
This is a depiction of Kyle.
Yes.
Okay, I'm
There we
here
have
for
it. You feel honored, right?
God, I fucking hate you, Ryan. I fucking hate you.
Don't worry, Kyle. That one's free.
You know what? I'm making it my profile picture. I don't care. I'm making it my profile picture. I will do it right fucking now. Oh, Jesus. Hang on. I'm going to change back to the splash screen so I'll dock myself doing this. Holy shit.
I forgot to get my breath back in order.
Oh my god.
Okay, so how to be a virtual adept. Step 1, own a computer. Step 2, use computer. And that's it. It's that easy.
It's that easy, bros.
Anyone can be a virtual adept. Even Ryan. It just takes talent, but you'll eventually figure out what you're doing as time goes on. As for your avatar, most mages have dynamic avatars nowadays, where I believe these are the wild aligned, where they're saying, oh yeah, technology, let's go crazy with it, where they're starting to bleed together with the Sons of Ether. Where they're saying, hey, I got a lot of spare time on my hands, I made a program that does this, and just whatever random bullshit you can think of.
It's ultimate play the game.
Yes. But hold, I made Cookie Clicker in my spare time.
I mean, yeah, you can do that.
So, but your average Newgrounds user by this point.
Yeah, basically. Everybody wants to make a... I will say, though, IRL, if we're talking about this, I would say that the Syndicate has co-opted quite a few virtual adepts into soulless phone games.
Exactly. Turn players into payers.
Basically, that is the greatest flaw of the virtual adepts currently, is the Syndicate making phone games.
It's just a lust for money. There's also questing and pattern avatars today with the virtual adepts. There are no primordial avatars, which are wormish virtual adepts. In fact, the book doesn't even know how to describe a wormish virtual adept. So, Most of these guys are universally good people. You would think, right?
Unless, of course, one gets his hands on a telecomputer.
But as we mentioned before, these guys are basically going berserk against the democracy, where they just want technocrat blood, and that's what they're going after. Where
they looked at the Sons of Aether and went, I want to kill. I want to kill.
I want to kill.
I want to see blood in my eyes and gore in my teeth. I want to see burnt, dead bodies.
Now if you're thinking these guys are heroes or not, where to read off of TV tropes, the Virtual Adepts marry an organization-wide superiority complex with the legendary restraint and good judgment of the pseudonymous internet hive mind. Not only can they just strangle you to death through a screen if they're in an online argument with you, not only are they the Council's foremost experts on info hazards and mimetic weapons, they're also noted to have weird tendencies to just vanish into the digital web, and they reemerge as creepypasta monsters after doing so. I'm not even shitting you when I say that part. Laughing Jack and Jeff the Killer and Slenderman are Virtual Adepts.
That's kind of funny, actually.
We're just...
have you ever read the original Jeff the Killer?
He just falls over cleaning his bathtub, and that's how he became.
No, he gets in a fight with these two other kids.
Oh no, the really edgy one.
Yes,
really edgy shit.
Yes, it's so bad. It's such a shonen anime. It's incredible.
I'm gonna look up something that's gonna get me to start sweating. I'm automatically feel like the chill shit my spine.
You don't have to. What are you looking up?
Rap Rat.
Oh yeah, that thing's fucking creepy. I hate that thing.
That's the fucking creepiest fucking shit in the world, and you want to make a board game out of this?
Yeah, I would hate staring at that fucking thing for hours playing a board game.
Yes, please.
That is also a Virtual Adept.
Sign me up.
Where imagine somebody just hops into a computer one day, and then that comes out.
See, I looked up that thing entirely on accident because I was trying to find the video clip for Mr. Bombastic from Barnyard, and I typed in Rap Rat, and that came up.
And that thing is what pops up.
It scared the shit out of me, dog.
Yeah, it's just fucking creepy looking.
It is. I don't want to think about that.
Yeah. So that's what I mean with some of these spells where when we get into Ryan's spell segment, that's one of the spells you can do. You can just kill a man through choking him through a TV through a TV scrn.
One of these motherfuckers watched too much goddamn Star Wars.
Any digital screen you can just strangle a man through.
True.
There's a scene, and neither of you have watched Inuyashiki, have you?
No.
A little bit.
Sean has, and he knows what I'm talking about with this. It's basically an anime made by the same guy who made Gantz, who said, if you became an immortal cyborg, what would you do with the power? And one of the powers involved a guy could just shoot you to death through a TV screen. That was one of them. So, if you're getting an argument with a control on 4chan, you just aim a gun, shoot it into your computer, and it will kill the guy on the other side of it, on the other side of the screen.
He literally pulls a Hitler from Kung Fury. Is this the police? Fuck you!
It's exactly what you can do. And what we mentioned before about the superiority complex, so you remember those conditions about how they had to give the traditions all the information on technocracy?
Yep.
They let that go to their head, where they're saying, the only reason technocracy was about to take over consensus was because of us, and the only reason you're doing so well against them now is because of us.
I mean, aren't they?
Well, they're right about that, but to be told that every day is going to get grating.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, I'm super. Yes, I'm awesome. Thanks for asking. And that's what you hear from them every day.
Yep.
And on top of that, but Kyle, mimetic weapons. What I mean by that. So, how easy is it to spread misinformation on the internet?
Very.
Oh, bro. It's on the internet. It has to be true.
Where I sign in to X now, and anti-Semitic AI-generated videos are the first thing that pops up on my screen.
Yep. Pretty much.
That's it. Now imagine what smooth-brained right-wing schizo looks at that and says, yeah, it's real. Yeah, it's true.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, I'm just going...
It reinforces their ideology. Of course they're going to take it as, unequivocal fact.
And same with how people that should have never gotten any attention, like Hassan Piker, Andrew Tate.
Everybody you talk about.
Leafy is here. Just how any of them got followings to begin with.
Well, he started out as Leafy just started out as a Minecraft YouTuber and then joined like the rant trolling circle with folks like Nefuckers and Parasonical back in the day.
And he opted on that, where you could have had an entire internet culture based around bullying children if nobody stepped in to do anything about it.
Yeah, but they did.
And that's what I mean. We're saying, if you're like funny enough, if you're able to obfuscate what you're doing through clever edits and being like annoying and repetitive and creating earworms and all that shit, you can hypnotize anybody. Well, it's left wing and right wing propaganda streamed directly into your brain, and a virtual adept made the technology for it. You remember the MK Ultra project? That was made by Virtual Adepts.
Yeah, makes sense.
That was them. Where we're going to hypnotize you through a TV screen. And then the Virtual Adepts still have access to that technology.
They're fucking with me subliminally.
And then meanwhile, compared to technology, Ryan, you know what ARPANET is, right?
I have no idea.
Our very first internet made in the 60s.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
That was a recreation by Iteration X. When Virtual Apps made the internet, it was with 5G. It was with 5G towers in 1996. 1969.
Makes sense.
That's level. So imagine just how far ahead the curve the Virtual Adepts are.
Oh yeah, they're way ahead.
And all these technological advancements you're seeing from Iteration X, it's them copying what little notes they still have from the Virtual Adepts. So this is what I mean by how advanced the Virtual Adepts are.
Wow, it's almost like that group of, math nerds sitting in the corner making all your timetables were actually really fucking important.
It's like Bill Gates was a nerd in high school and now he's the richest man in the world.
Yeah, the way I like to think about it is the schism of the virtual adepts from the rest of the technocracy is like Gabe Newell leaving Microsoft to make Valve.
Yes. And now you've got the video game industry fucking collapsing around us, and Gabe Newell does nothing.
Yep. Do nothing. Competition constantly shoots itself in the foot. What is this business model called?
Yeah.
Put me in that position. I will definitely shoot myself in the foot.
Well, and like Valve releases a game like once a year by this point.
I don't think they even do that. They just kind of like chill.
Like every 2 years.
Half-Life reconfirmed.
Like Half-Life Alyx came out. What year again?
I think back in like 22, I guess?
2020.
Really?
So they make a game every 5 years, and that's it.
When the technology fucking, improves to a point in which they feel like they can make an iterative improvement to what they made.
And then the Steam Deck is like it only works half the damn time, but it's still better. It's still a better deal than the fucking Nintendo Switch.
I don't think it doesn't work half the damn time. It works phenomenally. Matter of fact, they give you a whole video on how to take it apart and put it back together if you need to.
And then the Switch, if it breaks, you just have to buy a new one.
Yep. Thank you very much, Nintendo.
And then with this really shitty business model they got with the Switch 2, it's going to cause a crash. And then when GTA 6 comes out, that's going to be the final nail in the coffin.
No, I think a million people are going to buy it and then realize it sucks.
And then everybody's going to be fucking poor and nobody's going to be able to afford games anymore because it's going to be $100 as the expectation.
Look, I wanted to buy Doom the Dark Ages, but it's $70. Actually, no, it's $80, I think. Hang on. How much? Let's see.
Speaking of which, Half-Life Alyx is on sale on Steam, 70% off. What is this? $17.
Yeah, look at that. Let's see.
For rat physics.
Doom the Dark Ages is $70.
There it is.
But
it's not even on fucking summer sale. What the fuck?
Yeah, no, I was surprised to see that, but like I'm gonna wait for a sale because I haven't beat Doom Eternal because like I just have not had the time to play video games recently. But I do need to, and I'm also dumb enough to play the game on Ultra Nightmare because I'm fucking stupid.
Now, is there any structure to the Virtual Adepts? No. There's no structure.
Yep.
You just go in, you punch into work, you do your job, and that's it. Do these guys ever meet in person? No. back in the day, you would only ever talk to another adept over the phone. Or you would just, nowadays, go into virtual reality, into the metaverse, and you meet there.
Basically turn into Ready Player One, but without all the cringe Reddit writing.
Yeah, there is no in-person meetings with the virtual adepts. Where some of the virtual adepts don't even know each other by their first name or their last name. You just know them by their internet handles, and that's it.
Well, I mean, it's safer that way. As they always said, always use your username. And now, people know my first name because of this podcast.
So your average VR chat is what a meeting between virtual adepts looks like.
Yeah, basically, or Discord chat.
They're meeting each other in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
It's kind of funny. It's like plotting the downfall of the technocracy in like a VR chat where you have like 20 people as Kermit the Frog.
You have a scene where you have a hermetic go into the VR for the first time. And he's looking around and he's seeing like all these virtual apps and fucking like animal avatars and anime women.
Yep.
And he's thinking to himself like, what the fuck is this?
Welcome to the future. The future is now, old man.
And he shut it down through like a blown up microphone.
Yep. It's the funny mic.
All right. The legions, the social legions, as they call them, or just the factions within Technocracy.
There's quite a few of them. I didn't finish my notes, so bear with me.
Some of these are also easy to understand.
Yes. So, starting from the top, you have Should I throw these up on the screen real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, starting from the top, you have the cyberpunks. They all have like a bunch of different names, but these guys are probably the most numerous. There you go by the mutualists, collectivists, anarchists, social reconstructionists, whatever kind of ists you can think of, that would be these guys.
And by this point, we know what this term means. It's 2025. We know what a cyberpunk is.
Yes, basically.
We know what this is.
Somebody who uses the digital world in order to do their freedom. It's fun.
And they're very cynical about this. They see that corporations are getting richer and richer. There's this massive disparity between wealth. So they're going to stick it to the man. The only way they know how.
By, stealing all their money online, which is a very based and cool thing to do. Unless you do it to one of my clients, because then that makes my job really, really hard. So don't fucking do it to my clients.
Work overtime if you do that.
Occasionally I've had to. So, so the cyberpunks, so in the early days of the Order of Reason, there was a lot of difference engineers who were fascinated with the ideas of Greek Stoics and Cynics, and would soon begin to experiment with the idea of these anarchist nations that would be made up of a series of self-governing cells. No higher government authority would be needed. There would be free trade between all of them. They realized that from their research, an anarchist village sort of mimicked the function of living organisms, which the progenitors were studying at the time, and of course, being in the same circle, they would look over their shoulder, copy their homework. This was first tested during the Spanish Civil War, where certain difference engineers would liberate parts of Spain and sort of shape local towns to their expectations. These villages subsequently thrived with the idea of, no higher government being needed. They just sort of freely traded between each other, settled disputes within themselves. However, the technocracy believed these towns would breed ideas that would deviate from the agenda and the timetable. They have then removed any aid to the anarchists they removed any aid to the anarchists that were founded and allowed the fascist government of Spain to take hold. This disenfranchised the soon-to-be virtual adepts so much that they sort of became the rear guard for the adepts during the Adept Revolt, allowing a lot of the virtual adepts to escape the clutches of the technocracy when they first rebelled. Now free from the clutches of the technocracy, they first tried to ally with the Cult of Ecstasy in the 60s, which sadly failed miserably. However, in the early 70s, a lot of punks had been attracted to the anarchist movement and helped bolster their numbers. Since then, the cyberpunks became the front line of the Ascension War. They rediscovered the idealism founded by both the anarchist and the punk movements, which then, utilized the technology to their advantage in order to wage their war against the technocracy. Their modus operandi is very, very simple. Kill, maim, destroy. They are by far the most violent alt of the Virtual Adepts. They believe that the best way to build a new world is from the ashes of the old. They are the ones responsible for breaking down technocrat myths, dismantling their propaganda, and doing the most physical damage possible. They are the least subtle and treasure the forces sphere amongst more than anything else. Correspondence will get them where they need to go, and most of them communicate with online video games and chat rooms. But despite the fact that they are the loudest and most brash of all of the factions, they are the hardest ones to find. The only real way to get involved in the cyberpunks is through something called the Labyrinth. Every now and again, an online game will pop up every 3 months somewhere on the internet. Usually it's something of Greek origin, about Minos, about, Theseus, about something of that nature. And so it subjects a player to a series of attacks that they must deflect and, regain access to the system, break their way in, and plant some evidence to say, like a flagpole, basically saying, hey, I made it here. And so after that, you're contacted by the cyberpunks and you are in the faction. There are very little rules. I think there are 3 of all that make up the cyberpunk faction. Rule number 1, never pass up on a chance to fuck with the system. Rule number 2, never abandon a cyberpunk in need. Rule number 3, there are no rules. Does that supersede the first 2? I don't know, but usually it's honor among thieves in this regard.
So Ryan sounds like a group of fun people, right?
Absolutely.
Now, you could also say this is just a bunch of people that just never fucking grew up, but you look at the world that you're about to go into and do want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of fucking sucks.
Yeah. Where, especially if it's just one world control that the NWO just had to have their way and wouldn't do any sort of compromise with.
Pretty much.
So the old punks are starting to die off now, and they have to go into virtuality and stay there now. The new punks are just basically just assholes you found off the street that just have like maturity complexes that you just say, hey, give them a computer, give them a gun, and then just turn them loose.
It turns into a human wave tactic, which is, less effective, as the worm has shown.
But the only group that can effectively fight these guys is Iteration X.
Yep. So,
that's it.
It all balances itself out.
The NWO, the Progenitors, and the Syndicate still don't have effective means of defending themselves against these guys.
Yep. And so while Iteration X is busy fucking with them, they're
tactically NWO's best advice for handling them is saying, just wait for them to turn 30 and join the Iteration X. That's your best hope against these guys.
Yeah, basically, but there's no guarantee of that now, is there?
No, there's not.
Anyhow.
Next up is a very similar group, but they're more basically the same, but they're more hermetic, the cypherpunks.
Yes, otherwise known as cryptogramics, ciphers, crypts, or the thought police, as they're called. So they originally started as a backlash of the cyberpunks crash of the Iteration X mainframe. A lot of the adepts involved at the time didn't really understand how serious the war was. While authorities in real space cracked down on hackers among adepts and sleepers, the technocracy led simultaneous attacks on adept resources in virtual space. And so, to prevent the decimation of the adept tradition, a group of leading mathematicians started encrypting and hiding all of their data streams, creating VPN tunnels, creating end-to-end encryptions, multi-factor authentications, anything that they can do in order to lock down all of their data. And thanks to their work, for every successful attack by the technocracy, 3 or more adept locations vanished or became completely undetectable. Assuming that they'd wiped out everything they could, the technocracy relented and went back to their, usual business. And the vanished adepts were, sealed behind, a web of deception created by the cryptogramics or cypherpunks. However, with the end of the technocracy adept war, the cryptogramics sort of lost a sense of purpose. But It regained it when the antics of the cyberpunks threatened to expose the Adepts again. So the cryptographics rose to the challenge to clean up their mess and make sure that no trace was left. So this continued for almost a decade of the ciphers reacting to the punks' excess. Some of the more angry cypherpunks took extreme measures to prevent disasters by even killing other cyberpunks. They sort of are the correction force between them. But a number of them just quit altogether after realizing that all their best work would be sabotaged by the people they were just trying to help. However, their turn came in the early 1990s when they stole and decoded a set of unreleased documents from the MK Ultra project as they were looking for a way to protect adepts against telepathy, and a revived interest amongst the adepts in the field of neurolinguistics, which we'll get to in a minute. And so, after about a year after that, the adepts abandoned the new project, but several dedicated ciphers wouldn't let it rest. So what they found out was, as they left the technocracy, they poisoned the data well that they were taking with a neural code virus, hiding our origins in the depth of knowledge about the Union, basically erasing their history. They found a way to cripple them. Basically, what this thing was that, if you tried to access a certain website, it's sort of like a logic bomb for your brain. Once the bomb fulfills these specific conditions, it basically demolishes your avatar. That's it. Game over. Mm-hmm. And so it was the ciphers that found this out and began to work about creating an antidote. They did successfully create it and gave it to the Net Explorers and Reality Coders and released it on the anniversary of Turing's birth, which is an adept holiday, so to speak. Since then, the adepts returned to their place of power with vengeance, and the ciphers, began teaming up with them to find new and effective ways to strip control from the NWO.
That's how it works, right?
Yes.
It's even more cynical cyberpunks.
Basically, we're like, you guys are a bunch of... These are the punks that grew up and were like, you idiots, keep spilling your cereal all over the goddamn place. Everybody's going to know who did it. Here, give me a fucking mop. I'll clean up your shit.
These are... You actually have to have some qualifications if you want to become one of these guys, where
yes,
you have to know about cybersecurity. You have to be able to plan ahead. Something that the cyberpunks can't do.
Yep. You gotta know how to nab admin credentials and then clean up sign-in logs.
You gotta be a team
but that
player
is
with these
really
guys.
hard to do.
It is. And now it kind of was asking me as to why are these two guys on the thumbnail? Shouldn't these guys have like bagger pants? Shouldn't it look like V or David from Cyberpunk?
That's what I was
saying.
thinking.
No, this is a Chaostician that we're going to talk about, and these are my favorite.
Right. So the Chaosticians, gray men, arithmeticians, probability engineers. Numbers are very interesting things, and they fascinated cultures all throughout history. And a number of the predecessors of the technocracy point to Pythagoras and Agrippa as inspirations for forming their paradigm. Some of the more dedicated would become members of the Virtual Adepts, even studied Hebrew gematria. It's sort of mixing language and mathematics to find the roots of creation. The faction that calls itself the Chaosticians claims themselves descendant from the ancient mathematics. They also claim, whether true or false, that their observation of the universality of mathematics began the debate that led to the order of reason. So they like to, that's part of their claim to fame.
They want to take credit for the NWO's own idea.
Basically. When the Order of Reason began in 1325, the mathematicians formed a sub-lodge of the order, the arithmeticians. Though they weren't strong enough to form a convention of their own, they had members throughout the Union. The 1800s brought the creation of the computer, which the arithmeticians flocked to, along with others to become the difference engineers, as they would be known at the time. For the first time in the Union, they had found their place and they were happy. They could play on their computer. They could, accelerate the timetable for Ascension. They can build whatever they want on it. However, in their quest for Ascension, the arithmeticians neglected two fundamental forces: the technocracy's need for control and an X factor that always troubled their equations. At first, they blamed the problems on the traditions, especially the Sons of Ether, for subverting the dominant paradigm, but something seemed wrong. And so they kept digging into it, and they found some non-Euclidean geometry. They started looking into even non-Euclidean geometry and quantum mechanics to try and find out where the issue was. The technocracy warned them to stop their deviance, because thinking outside of the box is not kosher for the NWO.
It's heresy. You gotta be boring.
Even though,
you gotta be willingly stupid.
Even though, their whole idea is, hey, something's wrong with the system. You're not allowed to think something's wrong with the system. Okay, I guess we'll go fuck ourselves.
When your computer just glitches out, you just leave it bugged.
Yeah, a lot of people do. You'd be surprised. And then they call us where it's like, hey, nothing's working. Turn it off and turn it back on again.
That's it.
So this came to a head in World War II when the arithmeticians saw sleeper statisticians subvert their numbers to support the premise of the Nazi regime. Appeals to the technocracy were in vain, as we saw in the letters exchanged previously. Since the technocrats saw the benefits of the unified world under fascism, they were terrified of this and helped the renamed difference engineers, now the Virtual Adepts, make a break with the technocracy. They teamed up with the social reconstructionists, later known as the cyberpunks, and were able to convince the majority to make the defection, and the move was performed nearly flawlessly. Basically, the Chaosticians rang the bell about, this whole Nazism thing is going to go really, really poorly, and then they were like, yeah, whatever. So the Chaosticians went over to the Virtual Adepts, and the social reconstructionists like, hey, these guys are supporting this blatantly authoritarian, genocidal regime. We need to get the fuck up out of here. And upon leaving the technocracy, the arithmeticians called themselves the probability engineers, began studying with the Sons of Ether and the Akashics. Einstein's work on relativity led to multiple breakthroughs within their rank, and they started to understand that X factor that they had feared was actually a vital piece of reality itself. And then in 1960, with the work of Edward Lorenz, for the probability engineers to codify their beliefs into the new mathematical tradition. By then, sleepers were reading the works of, Mandelbrot and Gaston Julia, and chaos mathematicians were already a standard amongst the adepts. Using chaos theory, chaosticians predicted both the Avatar Storm and the increasing apathy of the sleepers. And now, near the end of the Ascension War, the chaosticians have created a plan to jolt the system to reawaken the masses to bring them to the adepts' side. All they need is just a little bit of luck. They basically predicted all this shit.
They've quantified when something is going to happen in the World of Darkness. So, any instance where a vampire is going to breach the masquerade, any instance where a werewolf is going to cause too much collateral damage, any instance like that, they can predict it and they can shield humanity from it.
They predicted this all in Metal Gear Solid 2.
They did it, where they were able to figure out everything and control information about an incident as it's happening.
Does this mean Kojima's a chaostician?
Yes.
Fuck.
But on top of that, we can think even simpler, because there was once again, the Masters of Facts and Logic, Ryan, the World of Darkness subreddit, was saying, can I play a virtual adept without having to be digital? You can. A meteorologist, for instance. Where I look at weather patterns, I observe them, I can tell you when it's going to rain.
You wish, weather boy.
And that's it. Compare that to a Sons of Ether meteorologist who says, I made a snowball machine, I'm going to shoot it into the sky, and it's going to snow.
See, now that's just fun. That's like some Phineas... dude, Phineas and Ferb are fucking Etherites.
Yes.
That's fucking awesome.
But Kyle, the paradox.
It always seems to go away before Candace can, let them know.
Now, meanwhile, with chaosticians, Kyle, does anything we just said in that sentence sound like it could activate paradox?
Honestly, no.
No, it's a paradox-proof paradigm. We got it.
Well, I've done the calculations here. Here they are. Oh, these look like correct calculations. Holy shit, they're right. See?
You just use pattern recognition and numbers, and that's a spell. Now that does not sound like magic, but it's magic, and it will get you'll get no paradox from it.
So the Chaosticians, all of their mathematic, everything that they've worked on is already consumed by the masses. It's taught in schools, so they literally have nothing to worry about.
And everything with the Order of Reason that they did, they've covered their asses. They will get nothing because of their work with the Order of Reason. There it is.
They're doing a phenomenal
You begin to realize
job.
just how strong these guys are as a faction.
Also, I love how like the image for the Chaostician is this dude with the parachute pants and like the crop top jacket. That's fucking hilarious.
Let's see. Next up, we get a little bit easier to describe these guys. The reality coders.
Reality hacker, reality cracker. I've never once heard of him being called a cracker. I'm gonna be perfectly honest.
It's getting a little racial, isn't it?
No. Who does this guy look like? Reminds me of stuff. Anyway,
like a member of Smash Mouth.
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, it's probably the goatee. So the reality coders first appeared in the 1800s, but they quickly realized that they needed better computing devices to ensure the accuracy of their equations. Such a device was successfully completed during Turing's era, but by the time the reality coders were able to, work on it, they were hit with the T-virus and dissolved as a faction. However, about a decade and a half ago, inspired by the Chaosticians and the Cyberpunks, the reality coders reconstituted as a new alternative and applied their ideas to the world around them. They created what does that say, the text of the little thing?
Don't worry too much about it.
Yeah, so they created these lines of code to, invade dreams, rewrite life, hack minds, and in some ways bring back the dead. It's incredible what they've been able to do. At the time, they've ignited this fierce debate between them and the Nexplorers, which we'll talk about in a minute. The Nexplorers claim reality hackers were kicking a dead horse by hacking the codes of a dying world, and the reality hackers are like, the Nexplorers are just kind of jerking themselves off, walking around cyberspace without trying to actually do anything. The argument resolved itself after the Avatar Storm and the recovery of the Tradition's origins. When it became apparent that the virtual space and real space were intrinsically linked, reality hackers sat down with the Explorers to plan the next move. They were like, okay, it looks like we were right, but here, we want to help you out. The result was the reality coders, a group of addicts dedicated to bringing the benefits of virtual reality 2.0 to real space. To do this, they had to find the source code of the universe, so to speak. That's a tall fucking order. And that's what they've been doing ever since. They've infiltrated a number of levels of society, including sleepers and technocratic constructs, in order to gain the greatest compilation of knowledge they could find. Reality coder Kibos feeds this knowledge back to the Nexplorers, who use it to enhance R2.0, while the reality coders are using the Nexplorers concepts from R2.0 to test them reality. Sort of give and take between the two of them. They're good friends. One of the coders' more overt agendas is to acclimate sleepers into reality 2.0. They spread the ideas through video games and a whole spat of reality shows that mimic virtual reality. So, like we were saying before, Tron would be a great example of this. And that's basically what they've been doing.
On top of that, so your basic reality coder, we'll start off simple and get more complicated with the concept. Watch Dogs.
Yeah, kind of.
Where you just walk around and, I got the magic phone that anything.
It is basically a magic wand.
It also there was a movie version of that, like 9 years before it came out, there was a movie called Eagle Eye, I think, and it had Shia LaBeouf. That was basically the
Yes.
exact same movie.
I do remember that. It was like in a defense AI was like trying to assassinate the president or something, and Shia LaBeouf had to stop him.
Our next idea, Digimon, Kyle.
Yeah, that's
Where-
more an Explorers kind of thing than a reality coder.
Then our really complicated example, you remember Serial Experiments Lane?
I've never seen that.
I showed you a little bit of it. It is a cyberpunk story that combines elements with Gnosticism, where the border between the real world and the internet just disappears one day. And everything is online. Where the line between what you do on a computer and what you do in real life stops existing. So
Wow, it sounds like now.
So you have moments where a guy is playing a first-person shooter that ends up blending in with the kid's game of tag in one of the horror scenes.
Oh, wow.
But the main character Lane is able to like shift back and forth between a human persona and her online persona that acts completely different. And people think she's schizophrenic, but no, it's just she's got the power to just switch between these two versions of herself.
What about Sword Art Online?
And well, that's just a shit anime. And what you should be watching instead is Solo Leveling.
I don't know what that is
That's it.
either.
Sword Art Online if it wasn't written by an idiot.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. I don't know. I think the abridged version of Sword Art Online is better than Sword Art Online.
Well, the abridged version of any anime is better.
That's true. They should just let those motherfuckers do their shows. It'll be better. I'd like anime more.
So a lot of really fun ideas can come from this, you know.
Yes. I want to just change shit with reality because I wrote that code.
Now Ryan, can you imagine you're in the basement and you look up and you see somebody's legs are just clipping through the floor shaking?
I am currently in the basement, and that would terrify me.
It's
you
like
you touch the legs and it throws you off against the wall and you ragdoll.
Yep.
And
I'll be stuck in a T-pose.
it's
that's
just like
what
the you just hear the source filmmaker slapping now. Just
You have a virtual adept over to his computer, type in /noclip,
basically yes.
and he just starts flying around the world at light speeds, just in an A pose.
That'd scare the shit out of me though. But that'd be a high risk of paradox.
That's the last thing you see as an iteration as a NWO Men in Black. They're just walking down the street, and all of a sudden, this man is just flying at you at high speed in an A pose.
Yep. That would. Agent Evans gets took out by some nerd on no clip.
Yeah.
Turns on God mode /Buddha.
He found a way to turn on creative mode IRL.
He did.
And that's what happens.
Or if you play like Crusader Kings, you type in, how do I turn this on? And it spawns you in a car with a rocket launcher.
So these are the guys who are going to rack up a shitload of paradox, but these guys have worked with the Order of Reason for how many years? They know how to hide this shit.
They
know how to get around it. Next up is the Nexplorers, and this is the last faction.
Cybernauts, console cowboys, runners, new explorers. Since Turing's discoveries in the 1940s, a large portion of Adept energy has been dedicated to mapping out this territorial virtual space. Because of this, the majority of the tradition could be said to be a part of this alt. Disdaining the use of meat space, as they call it, the Net Explorers set upon the agenda to escape from the quote-unquote dying world into reality 2.0, programmed by them. Into this grand scheme, they incorporated everyone, including the enemy, as long as they could ensure the virtual space itself remained free to adapt to anybody's dreams. This is what they called the digital web. The whiteout and temporary crash at the DigiWeb sent a wake-up call to this alt. They couldn't just focus solely on things in their own playgrounds. Increasing sleeper interference in the virtual space led to growing bitterness among them, turning them against the very people they wanted to help. This seems to be a trend. Undoing the Turing virus led to a serious reordering of the Nexplorers' priorities. Now that they understand that virtual space and real space are codependent on each other, working hand in hand with the reality coders, they embarked on this great project to overhaul the Tellurian source code. These explorers who remain in the alt are working on refining Reality 2.0 for the Adept stream. Then they'll download it to reality coders who will make it a reality, and then there will be no difference between real space and virtual space. So that sounds terrifying. I don't know why you want to do that.
Yes, we'll get rid of the gauntlets. Now Digimon can be real.
Well,
Come on, don't you want Digimon to be real, Kyle?
But you know,
yes. You never saw Digimon Tamers, did you?
well, I watched a couple episodes of it, and it was all right, I guess.
Whereas it turns out, your best friend, you can just 3D print him. You just type in, I want this guy. You just hit enter. You just hit print, and then he's real.
What was
Amazing,
the fish
right?
one that kept eating lemons? I don't remember. It
The
was the only episode I remember. He kept eating lemons for some reason because he didn't feel right.
Yes, I'm typing in. Oh yeah, that Diaphragmon.
Yeah, is that it?
Yeah, that's him.
He's dumb. I like him.
Yes.
Didn't he
And
throw
they
up
add a
his
lot of
brother or something in that episode? I don't know. I'm getting weird like memory holes of Digimon that I've watched a couple minutes of.
Is ironically enough, Digimon as an anime is alright, but I actually find myself as an adult liking the Digimon games more so than Pokemon.
Yeah.
I have fully checked out Pokemon.
I like Pokemon more, honestly.
It's been the same game since 1996, but Digimon is just constantly reinventing itself.
I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right?
It is broken. It's like a boring game of rock, paper, scissors with 18 different rocks, papers, and scissors.
Yeah.
And it just gets really tedious after a while to play.
It's a core concept. Don't worry about it.
It's the same with fucking Overwatch, to where you have to keep switching between champions. Can't get comfortable
This
with
is
any
why
one
I don't
character.
play hero shooters.
Yes. And before we get into relationships, Ryan, you want to go over spells?
Sure.
All right, let's go over some spells. Ryan, pick a spell and let's go over it.
We are going to be on screenshot 205 20. Anyway, page 65, we are going to be talking about the worm.
The worm.
The worm.
The worm.
The worm.
The worm. How do you spell that?
Claw.
How do you spell that?
WORM.
Okay, it's a safe one. Okay.
Not necessarily, no. I mean... Sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
So what's the worm do?
It's all good. So it's mind for entropy or time 2. It's optional for some reason. This neuro-linguistic rote is used to erase mental secrets and codes vital to the Adept Tradition's survival. It was originally adapted and upgraded from New World Order rote known as the T-Virus. It does not change the Adept's personality or alter any of their knowledge of spheres or general skills. Sorry,
It's all right. It's okay. It's gas.
The system is mind is used to locate and erase memories. Entropy and time, which are both optional, ensure that the memories are removed are only those reading to Adept's secrets and not ones the ex-Adept will need later on. This is not necessary to the casting, but most Adepts use it out of respect to their fellow members. On a single success, most of the memories of the Adept secrets will be erased. Multiple successes will erase more subtle memories. A critical success, or blah, 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 will erase all conscious and subconscious traces of the Adepts, leaving only an awakened mage who is eager to embrace a new tradition, whatever that may be.
So you remember how the NWO has this whole shtick about brainwashing and converting traditionalists?
It's their favorite thing to do.
This is doing a reverse card. Is what this is.
Well,
I really like this faction.
You forget. Everyone forgets.
Everyone forgets just what you did to them in the past, and now we have a new best friend who we're going to slap We're gonna put him in an office chair all day and make him do the shit nobody wants to do.
Yeah.
And everyone is happy.
I'm happy. You're happy. This is
Yes.
just a Barney episode.
You just get the RFK Jr. brainworm and it takes over a guy's mind.
Sounds about right.
Exactly. Now there's a thing called Met that I don't know what really is.
What we're looking at? Oh,
Met.
Mind's Eye Theater. You don't have to worry about that.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, we don't have to read that.
We're gonna go on to a more common route called Here Kitty Kitty.
Yes, that's Kyle. That's actually what it's called.
Why?
Yes. I don't know.
Because Catboys.
Yeah, because the Kyles in the world.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Straight up, this is an insane route and recommended only for the desperate. Basically, it is used in a. I really like this. I like this writing right here.
Yeah.
This is an insane route and recommended only for the desperate. Basically, it is used in a firefight to bring in someone or something that hates your opponent. The catch is that the critter you call up may not like you either. The original creator of this route, an adept named Zero Effect, snagged a werewolf with it on his first try, and it ended up in a hospital for the better part of a year. Still, his opponents ended up in a very small pine box, so the situation did have an upside. You can find this route in an adept data storage under a Tweety bird icon. Zero said this cartoon, in which a helpless little bird lures a cat into a worse and worse danger, inspired him. One day he pictured the cat as the big bad technocracy. I don't know why I struggled. And he had to create this route. If I didn't say it before, it's correspondence 3, mind 3, time 3.
That's what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Difficulty, I believe, 8 to set this off?
I don't know. It doesn't say.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's how the rules of Mage works.
Oh, yeah.
It's a 5 plus the highest fear rating.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The Mind Sphere draws out something that targets fears, so occult lore helps as well. While correspondence in time ensures that the object of that opponent's fears show up, please note that it is not a teleport road, though some hacker geeks did devise something called Summon Critter that uses life or matter to port in monsters. To reduce paradox and get around some of the anti-magic wards, Zero decided to draw critters and using coincidental means. And correspondence opens up a coincidental path for the creature to follow. Time makes sure it shows up before the combat ends. And a safer variant of this route uses forces instead of time to make a hologram appear instead of a real creature. I can see why.
Doesn't even need to be real sometimes. Just whatever is the natural enemy of whatever you're fighting, this thing summons.
That's honestly kind of hilarious.
Bring back the animosity.
Exactly. You bring back the giant man-eating spider.
Yeah.
It's that easy. And let's do...
Is this how we get the Naga back?
Yeah, this is how. Snake people.
Cool. Wait, no, the Naga are fine. This is how you get the Bunya back.
Yeah,
there we go.
Who's afraid of a thylacine?
I'm terrified of the bunny people.
Ryan, let's do one more.
One more. I already did that one. I don't want that one.
So you pick me out a winner.
Not that one.
I think about
I already
this one.
did that one.
Let's see the spell catalog. I'm excited to see what you pick.
Clockers.
Let's do that one.
Oh, maybe this isn't not.
Clockers.
I don't think that's a.
That's the thing. It's a foci.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me bring back. We're gonna do Twaci. Twaci.
It's pronounced thwacky.
Thwacky.
What?
Yep. It is corresponds 3, forces 3, mind 2.
Yeah. It's
It's a lot.
pronounced Thwacky. This is short for the walls are closing in, and it's a paranoid's nightmare. The caster warps gravity, manipulates space, and adds in a creeping sense of doom to slow down opponents and ultimately crush them. Correspondence in mind magics warp the target's perception, making it appear as if the walls or other surrounding terrain are closing in on the target. Then minor manipulation of gravity causes the cumulative
Cumulative. Yeah.
that word damage, 1 die of bashing, increasing each turn up to 10 dice. As mind magic keeps the target paralyzed with fear for a turn.
You're not actually touching them, but they're so convinced that it is real that they die from it.
Yeah.
Fun to fight these guys, right?
Oh yeah.
Bit of a pain in the ass, I'd say.
And then with that foci, let's read over what clockers do. This tool.
Yeah, clockers. It's a 4-point invention. Paradox curing. 20-point storage.
A little expensive to have one of these.
Is it? Damn.
Yeah, a little bit.
Computers are cool toys, but even they have their limits. Push them too hard, and you'll end up with a paradox-inflicted heat disabling or destroying your foci. For most adepts, this is a clear message to slow down. But a few crazy bastards aren't interested in stopping. For these lunatics, there are clockers. Clockers are supercooling systems designed to bleed off paradox and increase the speed of adept systems well past the normal parameters. The hitch, of course, is that when paradox does catch up with them, it is explosive. Seriously, dangerously explosive. In between uses, clockers must remain immersed in freon or liquid nitrogen, preferably imbued with TAS as well. What is TAS?
Liquid physical quintessence.
Uh,
What you're going to have a handful of in your next live play.
Clockers use time 3 to increase the computing power of an adept's rig. The adept can speed up or slow down time around themselves, allowing more time to program accelerated computing time, or even quicker casting off the computer-based ropes. Once the paradox threshold is reached, the clocker chip will explode, doing 10 dice of damage to the mage. What the fuck? And destroys the device it's attached to.
Well, in the rolls that I do, that's an instant kill.
Yeah. 10 Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
When my fucking PSP broke, I need to go get a new battery for it because the battery has swelled with gas. And I was looking up online about that, and it said, "Oh yeah, it happens if you're left charging for too long." Well, bullshit! I did not leave that thing charging for that long. But it said, "Whatever you do, do not puncture the battery because it will blow up in your hand if you do so."
Yes.
That's what that is.
Didn't a couple of years ago a phone kept blowing up? It was like an Android phone or something like that.
I think it
so,
was
yeah.
one of the Samsung phones that kept blowing up.
Your U-board, hoverboard piece of shit.
Yeah, that's what they were overclocking, or they were clocking it.
Yeah, the clock speed was too fast, and it was cooking the CPU.
Yeah.
Now, Ryan, you see anything on the same page? Astros. Let me read off what
familiars.
Let me read off what this thing does, and then you read the mechanics on it.
I got you.
So you know the hit marks, Kyle?
Yeah, those big scary fucking things that hurt like a son of a bitch and heal each other.
This
you
is
mean
their
the thing
version
that
of
I
it.
am?
Yes.
Yeah. You are a hit mark 3. This is the Virtual Adepts version of it. And they don't take the form of humans. They appear as dogs, cats, birds, and snakes. And are either realistic or robotic, depending on what the Virtual Adept wants out of it. They're programmed with the flow of information that goes from any particular area. Disruptions of that flow are immediately reported to the adept. This foils most stealth techniques, except for the most pervasive ones. Basically, what this thing does is that it patrols your haven, and if it senses that anything is wrong, it immediately lets you know. So a ring doorbell camera on legs, so to speak. And on top of that, they have a hyper adaptation feature that allows them to basically just make themselves immune to your lethal damage attacks on the fly. Fun, right?
Yeah, that's pretty fucking scary.
The only issue is that they need to sleep. That's their one weakness.
That's
Now,
fine.
as for their mechanics, Ryan, read these off. Check this out. Check this shit out. Ryan's not mute, is he?
I was.
Okay.
Fuck. So it's
Alright.
it's a construct type.
Yes?
It's the nature is Galliard.
It's going to be virtuous and it's going to help you no matter what.
It is a strength 3, dexterity 3, stamina 2, charisma 1, manipulation 2, appearance is 0, perception 3, intelligence 3, and wits 1.
Damn.
It has 3 willpower and it has 3 essence.
So, yes, it has quintessence inside of it.
Yeah.
And it works like a spirit, where it's got stuff like hide, claws and teeth, resilience,
Yeah.
soak lethal damage, adaptation.
And then you could choose one more from a set of the following list of charms. Like you could have soak lethal or an aggravated damage, armor, heat object, cyber presence, encryption software, and jacket. Shapeshift. A new adaptation can be selected to replace an old adaptation. One turn after a successful lethal or aggravated attack occurs. The health levels are normal.
So
bullshit.
it's not as strong as the hit mark, but you can imagine how this thing is just as useful.
Oh yeah, and the fact that it's always Galliard.
And Kyle, is this making you think of any cartoon character in particular?
Oh, what? Inspector Gadget, maybe?
Oh no, I was thinking about something a bit more modern. I was thinking about this.
Hang on.
Oh yeah, I can see.
Oh my fucking god, you're right. You're
Yeah, it's one of
100% right.
Yeah, it's one of these.
Jimmy Neutron Virtual Adept.
We're going to figure out how we're going to accidentally destroy the world in every episode we make.
Dude, a fucking a Mage the Ascension game where you have one character playing as Jimmy Neutron and his nemesis is Dexter from Dexter's Laboratory,
The two of them.
who's working for IX.
We never had that crossover. What the fuck?
Well, that's because it was, Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon.
There was money on the table to be made here, you idiots. You didn't do it.
No, it would have been too complicated.
It would have been too smart. Too smart of an idea.
I don't know. I always got mega hype whenever Disney Channel did crossover episodes.
Yes. And looking into... Let's go over the relationships. Let's do it now.
Yes, indeed. So,
does anyone actually like each other?
Actually, surprisingly, yes. In a rare instance, people actually sort of kind of get along with the virtual adepts to an extent.
And we're not going to go over first edition because the first edition, now the book decides it wants to go into dialogue, and it's like 5 characters all talking over each other in that section.
I mean, this one does have some overlap, but not a whole lot.
It does, but it's not nearly as bad as first
Yeah.
edition. I did not send you first edition's pages for a reason.
Yep. So, starting from the top, of course, we have the Akashic Brotherhood. So, the Akashics, everything is about the mind, fine-tuning it into a razor-sharp instrument. They do excessive amounts of martial arts training. It supposedly makes them more balanced with the world, but technology is no part of it. They want everything simple like before the Dark Ages. But one thing they do like about them is their individuality. No two Akashics will ever tell you the same thing, yet they all wholly support their tradition as a whole. They're only as independent. They're as independent as the virtual adepts are, only on the other side of the spectrum. Useful for prepping the masses to think for themselves, but that's, the simplicity parts have got to go. Things aren't that simple, sadly. So, yeah, they got some good ideas, but they're kind of antiquated, is what they think. Celestial Chorus. Fuck the Celestial Chorus. Sorry, Rap Red. They don't like the Celestial Chorus.
Why?
Knocking these righteous bastards out of power was the one thing the Order of Reason got right. Their holier-than-thou bullshit gets downright ancient. If you get caught in a room with one, give 2 Hail Marys, throw salt over your shoulder, and run. Because they'll hurt you. Not because they'll hurt you, but because they'll sermonize your ears off. They don't
They do get a little bit sanctimonious in all fairness.
Yeah. I mean, they can't help it. Cult of Ecstasy. I kind of like these guys. Of all the traditions, their ideal is the closest fit to their own, even above the Etherites. They consider them compatriots, yin to yang. We cover
the whole
space.
Racing to a higher state kind of mentality.
Yes, we cover space, they cover time. In the end, I think they just might play a pivotal role in making Reality 2.0 work. But they do so many drugs, they make a cyberpunk look like they were on the road to recovery. They really know how to have fun and are more willing to pass the duchy, but just don't get caught in their two parties so long.
You get so high, you never come back down.
Basically, yes. At which point you fucking die because you OD'd, dumbass.
I told you about people how I've known to have smoked themselves stupid.
Yep. Yes, indeed. It's not addictive, bro. Meanwhile, a based alcoholic like myself.
Okay, so quit then.
Yeah, exactly. I keep reminding of that meme of like stoners when you tell them to quit versus stoners when you tell them that they're addicted versus alcoholics when you tell them they're addicted. Well, actually, see, there's this chemical here in the brain that's actually naturally produced by the brain, but I need to smoke every day to maintain that. Meanwhile, an alcoholic. Yep.
Yes.
Anyway,
that pothead was your Jordan Peterson impression.
Well, no, if I wanted to be Jordan B. Peterson, I would talk more like this, because he's almost Irish, but he's not quite, because he's Canadian.
Define God. Define worship.
Anyway, Dream Speakers. You think a bunch of mages who talk to ghosts would have their heads so far up their asses to notice anything, but surprisingly enough, they know more about the Virtual Adepts than we know about them. They don't get the impression they're totally against us, but they think we're misguided. But the sentiment's definitely shared. So the Dream Speakers, they respect the Dream Speakers, but both of them are just like, neither of us are compatible with each other.
It's probably just out of pity because of how many L's the Dream Speakers have taken.
Yeah, pretty much. The Euthanatos. Never, ever let them near your trinery. Not unless you want to reformat that sucker and start from scratch. They bathe in entropy. Casticians get along great with them. More power to them. The whole death angle is weird. I'm going to read this part verbatim because it's super fucking funny. If you know someone who could benefit from a little dying, give these guys a call and present your evidence. Oftentimes they ask for intelligence on something they haven't gotten access to in return for services rendered. Definitely worth the price, but don't forget to sniff out the reason why.
Where, with these guys, if you have a Euthanatos and Castician team up, just imagine like Gertie Kaminsky, you're about to go on an assassination, and then you get handed a piece of paper. What's this?
Hey, what's this?
And it's Castician saying, "Oh, this is your schedule for your assassination."
There's a pretty strict timetable here.
Look, this is where you need to stand. I need you facing northeast when you're doing this. At this exact moment, 8:54, 23 seconds, this man will then walk across the street. You need to be ready with your gun then. You then want to shoot that stop sign, which will have the bullet ricochet into the back of the man's head.
It's a pretty tricky shot, though.
If you follow the schedule, you will have a perfect assassination. Nobody will know it's you.
Yeah, I would like to roll. What do I usually roll for that? I was trying to. What did I roll to take a photographic image with my glasses? I think I rolled mind and forces. I think is what I rolled.
That was mine. Yes.
Yep, I will roll mine to make a photographic image of this timetable.
It's just that easy. Just assassinations you can't get through. As long as you follow the schedule, it'll go according to plan.
Easy peasy. Okay.
Who's
The,
Hermes?
well, actually, no. They have the hollow ones on here, too.
Oh, they actually have something to say about the hollow ones. Okay.
Flexibly pointless, I think, is the best description I've ever seen of the hollow ones ever. Each one is a different way, a different take on why the world is a moral cesspool. They don't give a fuck about anything. They do give them credit for their blatant disregard of what anybody else would think of them. But that's probably not necessarily a good thing now, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, thinking of the virtual adepts or thinking of the hollow ones, I just think of that scene from the end of The Big Lebowski where they're all standing outside and the nihilists lit the dude's car on fire.
They did it, man. They fucking killed my car.
And then, it's just a bunch of hollow ones standing there, and it's like our party and Mage. And it's like Gershwin talking to Lydia. It's like, these cowards are nihilists. These cowards are nihilists. We'll be fine.
What's mine is mine.
Fuck you. What's mine? I feel like when I wear the shades that I got for my Elvis impersonation, if I got like a headband, I think we could pull off like the dude in Walter. I think it'd be really funny.
The man bit a man's ear off over $9.
I mean, that's what happens when you were a nom.
I love that movie.
It's such a great fucking film. Okay, Order of Hermes. Classical Merlin's is outdated as Arthurian legend. It's a bunch of hocus
you fucking idiots. You're so similar.
It's hocus pocus bullshit. And they do these fucking dumb illusions that's on TV specials. A small percentage of them might be on the right track. A minority of them, studies the world in a mathematical model that would make the chaosticians proud. But it's a very small minority. They control the source code before the choristers could do it and look to do it again. They're political, backstabbing, and ignorant of the needs of the sleepers. You think they'd learn from their mistakes, but you know what they say about old dogs and new tricks.
You see that superiority complex leaking into that sentence?
Yeah, a little bit, but are they wrong, though?
Given the lack of empathy that the Order of Hermes has?
Yeah. At the very least, the virtual adepts want to help the masses. Might not be
they had the timetable. They know how to make the world a better place, and that would have succeeded.
Yeah, it would have. But then again, things also might have gotten irrevocably fucked if it was the NWO.
Now they just want to stomp the heads in of every technocrat they can find.
Yeah, and then, once they got rid of them, we can rebuild the world in peace.
But that also brings up the question, you will have to deal with some of the other traditions then.
Well, I mean...
Because the Order of Hermes, they would immediately try to take control of that plan.
Well, I mean, that's great, but also nobody likes them.
It's that whole paradox behind the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
As Winston Churchill once put it, war makes for very strange bedfellows.
And who are you going to team up with when the fighting's finally done?
Probably the Aetherites. Speaking of, kissing cousins if we ever had one. Like us, they used to be technocrats. They rely on science a bit more than we do. How they use it is far less rigid than the ways of the technocracy. What's more, they are incredibly useful. If you need something built, you go to them. They don't celebrate the web as much as the virtual adepts do. You'd think that virtual space would be a mad scientist's playground. They dabble in it, but they don't see the importance of the hypersphere like we do. Whether this is due to stubbornness or lack of foresight, who knows? It does give us pause and make us wonder how deep our kinship runs. I think it's better than they give them credit for. Still, I'd rather it be the Aetherites than the Hermetics.
Now, you might be wondering, where do the Aetherites get all these resources from? Well, it's because they have the money printer.
Yes.
You just crank this handle and it prints a dollar bill.
Money printer, hell yeah.
If you spin it faster, it just spits it out like a blizzard.
It prints money, bitch!
But Aetherites, aren't you going to crash the economy with that? No.
Well, no, because what we do is we keep it under the mattress in my secret, mattress vault, where if you open up the mattress and walk into it, it turns into a bank. And then you can take some money out of it. And then you have unlimited money.
On the inside. Time Lord technology.
Yeah.
It only ever enters the U.S. economy when I spend it.
Exactly. See? Easy peasy.
Well, we'll have to do spend it.
You go spend it, evidently.
Yes,
Verbena.
you just look at the ledger and look at the costs coming out of the Sons of Ether.
Oh, it's just incredible. It's like,
You're how many million in debt?
oh, well, here, let me just... My arm's getting tired printing this money printer. I'm going to make a mechanical arm to turn the money printer for me.
You got a crit score of 274, but it's all okay. We didn't know it could go that low.
I don't know. I think we can get it lower. Let me take out another fucking loan. Okay, the verbena. Sadomasochist. I kind of want to read this one verbatim as well because it's really funny. I was once in a cabal that had a verbena priest. Every time he wanted to cast a rote or work his magic, he bled himself or a nearby animal he caught, and then threw the blood at whatever he was enchanting. I asked him later why he did that. He went off about life herring something an adept wouldn't understand, and why don't I go back to my sterile computer room and play with my digits? We didn't talk much after that. If you want to provoke someone just for the sake of provoking, create a hologram of yourself and taunt one. You won't bleed, and he'll get pissed, and he'll likely bleed himself more to try to cut you. Otherwise, let him be. Someday, we or another tradition will get around to domesticating them and hopefully teach them how to be halfway useful. That's not going to happen.
So, polar opposites have ever existed.
Basically. It's like
We have two people that have nothing in common.
yeah, it seems
Put
to
them in the same
happen a
room
lot.
together.
Here's another interesting note. The Virtual Adepts actually have notes on the Ali Batin,
Which no one else has.
which I think is actually kind of neat because I didn't know a whole lot about them myself.
The Bettini.
Yes, the Ali Batin. So they know a little something about the Ali Batin. They might know them better as the subtle ones, the hidden ones, whatever you call them. They're not exactly a tradition. They're a hybrid of ecstatics and akashics who got all, excited about the Mount Shaf and the correspondence point. Granted, they held the council seat for correspondence before the Virtual Adepts, and they might know a few secrets about the sphere that we don't. They're willing to bet that they've got, far more secret. We've got far more secrets than them. In other words, a non-factor. I don't know. Still might be useful to ask them.
And they quit they quit the traditions because of this issue called the Web of Faith, where a part of their entirely off of the existence of Islam now because of how it mutated over time. And on top of that, they said that the traditions just didn't do enough against the tenocracy, so they said, fuck it, you guys are idiots, we're done with you.
Yeah, basically.
And that's how the relationship ended. Because
Anyway,
the Bettini, as of, if you're to consider modern day, they've only been out of the traditions for 103 years.
103.
And that's it.
Damn. So that's fairly recent.
Yeah, in comparison to all the stuff that happens in the World of Darkness, that's recent.
I mean, the World of Darkness goes back as far as, the creation. So that's...
As far as 10,000 BC.
Exactly. Yeah, so that covers all of the traditions. So to keep up with that, the technocrats. Fuck the technocrats. So
Kill 'em.
vampires. Since vampires drink blood and we have blood in us, mixing company isn't the best idea. Thankfully, they don't know about the web. Not like the Virtual Adepts know it. They're basically sleepers in that regard, who forgot
The
to die.
Nosferatu would like to beg to differ.
Oh, yeah, that's different. But, the Virtual Adepts don't know about them. And they have superpowers, and they don't worry about paradox. Okay, maybe they're not entirely sleepers, but there's part of the masses as sleepers are. They're just as dangerous to they're just as dangerous to use vulgar magic on as any other sleeper. You won't suffer as much paradox with them being supernatural, but you will still take some. The best way to deal with one who's going to try to kill you is tell them as calmly as possible that you're a mage. With luck, it'll make him hesitate long enough for you to use correspondence.
So it is. That confirms, too, that a vampire has to believe you can do something in order for you to cast a spell.
Yes. Werewolves.
eh,
Yes.
So that also means, Kyle, if you're encountering an elder vampire, let loose. But if you're encountering a neonite, don't even think about it.
Yep. It's like,
No,
no.
because that will catch up to you after time. The years of Alice Swad and the giant sun laser have passed.
Basically, it's just that gif of the kid piecing out.
We can't do that shit anymore. We gotta go with a more subtle option.
Yep. This just fade away.
Which is why werewolves are still the best group when it comes to killing vampires.
Yep. Basically, this is a super low res gif. Anyway, speaking of werewolves, we managed to get a little more data on werewolves than vampires, but by virtue of the former's predilection to enter the web. Not a whole lot go there, which is good. And the only ones that seem to worry about it are the glasswalkers. Werewolves in general typically don't care for the web. They're not a huge fan of it. Some will brave a monumental object to root around and see what virtual space is all about. If you can help it, avoid meeting them IRL. They get really nasty really quick, and a lot of them can even short-circuit technology. So search protect your portables.
Not even the glassworkers get fully on board with the virtual adepts. There's still some animosity between the two.
Yeah, well, I mean, their mass assumption is very different than, the glasswalkers. The glasswalkers don't believe that shit.
Compare how well it will go, how well it will be, how well this conversation will go between a superiority complex virtual adept and a rageaholic glasswalker.
It will end in a shotgun blast.
Exactly. The two of them are going to shoot each other through the computer screen.
Basically, yeah.
I swear, they can get along with the virtual adepts to an extent, but I swear the glassworkers only have one real mage friend, and that's the Sons of Aether.
Yeah. They have some things about other traditions that they respect, but they also don't quite get on board with them either.
Yeah, because werewolf is going werewolf.
Yes. Anyway, fairies and ghosts. Fairies don't exist. Ghosts do, however. No one's exactly sure what they are. Some say that they're residues of emotional trauma. Some say that they're improper downloads of people from real space into the web who sort of fried their brains trying to get in. Either way, ghosts have no conscience, but they're not really anything to be afraid of.
After all, they're trying to avoid going to the same place that ghosts go to.
Yes.
They've built heaven. They've built the Shadowlands.
It's not very good. To hop into it.
You also got to make sure that server's going to last forever too.
I mean, that you can do unless like a moth flies into it, which
you got to do. You do the ending to Soma. You just shoot the server into space.
I mean, that works too. Me, I'm thinking of I think therefore I am, where everything's static. All that needs to happen is one moth flies into one circuit in one ventilation shaft on Am's motherboard, and he's dead. And all the humans get to break out and live happy ever after.
And that's it. It's that easy.
I will worship the great moth. He will not survive.
Now, Ryan and Kyle, let's go over one. I usually don't do this with Mage, but this is too creepy to talk about.
Okay.
For me to not talk about. Posting this picture into what am I talking about? Usual chat. Got all too many ideas. I feel like I'm getting dumber as I get older.
Well, as Socrates once said, the older I get, the more I realize how little I know.
The stupider I become. After seeing this as this picture, I knew I had to talk about this lore character. Demon Seed Elite.
All right, what the fuck is going on here?
Okay, so let me tell you about this guy.
I don't even want to know.
He is stabbing people with coax cables, I would like to point out.
Yeah. So, the thing with him, this is read from like an account of somebody. So here I am, 3 a.m., kitchen, stirring at counter, pouring some cereal, making a mess with the milk. Never let it be said that I skimp on nutrition, including a full day supply of vitamin K that I get with my alphabets. Just ask any other elite types and they'll tell you vitamin K is the way to start out your day. Totally elite. I gotta keep my K-ness up because I don't want any shit coming down on me from the Demon Seed Elite. If you don't want to know what that is, listen up. People don't like to talk about it much, because it's such a heavy subject. Like a giant cow hanging over your head, ready to drop at any slip you make, or in this case, a monster truck. Rumor is, back in the late 1970s, early 80s, DSC was a user who achieved maximum K-Rad eliteness, at which point his soul merged with the global telecom network. Demon Seed Elite was no longer just a person, but an entity residing in the cables and satellite links of the network. He is AT&T, he is the internet, he is Southwestern Bell, your phone, the spy satellites which orbit around your heads. He knows when you've been sleeping and he knows when you've been awake, and he takes any signs of lameness of his networks as a personal insult. To speak his name is to die. Lamers and rodents all face his wrath. No one has seen him dealing out his vengeance or been alive afterwards to tell a tale about it. But he will come after you. Believe that. A literal ghost in the machine who comes around after people. All we can do is make assumptions for the wretched remains. A 13-year-old had his intestines ripped out, fiber optic cables twisted tightly around the pulp of what was his frontal lobe. The young geek's forehead was branded K-Lame, the word still sizzling in his freshly seared flesh when he was found bleeding to death all over the floor of his bedroom. His monitor still glowed with an ominous CUL8R, left over from signs of his friend who had been chatting with him over the modem. His pal suffered a similar fate. Demon Seed Elite is a physical manifestation. In physical manifestation, is said to prefer traveling in a giant orange monster truck with tires 30 feet high and 30 feet wide. The accuracy of these monster truck descriptions may leave some to be desired since the witnesses were pissing their pants at the time of observance. The monster truck theory is consistent with some reports of the deaths. On several occasions, a group of rodents were squashed flat in the middle of a parking lot or an open field. The only clue to the cause is their sudden flatness was a giant tread mark all over their bodies. It's as if a large truck fell on them from the sky and crushed them into a 2-day state, then disappeared. Now you can believe this, take heed, and watch out for yourself or not. Hey, it's your life, but as for me, I'm going to get on with eating my alphabets. I'm no fool, no siree.
That sounds... Jesus Christ.
There it is. That's the kind of stuff that the Tenarcracy have to think about.
Jesus.
So it is. Can you find an entity like this?
Probably.
Probably. It's going to take a lot of brainstorming, right?
Yeah, I would imagine.
Because Kyle, in the character descriptions, in the pre-made characters for this, unplugging your machine doesn't do anything once a virtual adept is inside of it.
No, it's already there. It already has all the data.
What? And given that internet speeds are getting faster and faster and faster, it's easier to be a virtual adept today than it's ever been.
Oh yeah, the complete control of information is impossible.
This is my favorite kind of science fiction. This is my favorite kind.
It's very Twilight Zone-esque.
Well, it's got stuff like Snow Crash, like Cyberpunk Red in 2077. Just a whole bunch of shit that I really do like.
I always love sci-fi, and this is as close to sci-fi as we get besides the Void Engineers. This shit is awesome.
Because the Glassworkers were my favorite tribe at one point in my life, but then they slowly started slipping the more I looked into who the Glassworkers were as people. The virtual apps have taken that place.
Well, they're just them, but better.
Just better in every way.
I think you're starting to like Mage more than Werewolf, if I'm being honest.
See, I'm getting into Mage, but I still think Werewolf is going to be my favorite.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair.
Mage is quickly becoming my number 2. And you can see why I like the virtual app so much. You can see why.
Yes, without a doubt.
All right. And yeah, because I'm running the Mage live play, and then me and Dan are doing an A day, B day on Fridays. I'm running a Mage game then.
Oh, what's Dan running?
He's running Rage Across the Amazon.
Yeah. That'd be fun.
There it is. And I finally got my stipulations for being a rat.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, it'll now be Rat Fridays.
Oh, wait, are you playing as Burst Bruiser?
No, I'm playing as one of his relatives.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
Yeah, one of his successors. And they were
Is his name Face Bruiser?
Face Bruiser. uh, as of right now, Dan told me I must have the amnesia flaw for the Farah. So
For rats?
there it is. I've been brainwashed by the Shadow Lords into helping them.
Oh. Yeah, it sounds like something they do.
So there we have it. I really, really like the Virtual Adepts, dude.
They're just so fucking cool, and now I want to play one while listening to that really bad Billy Idol song.
See, I have 2 different mage campaigns in mind that are entirely Virtual Adept centered, by the way.
I mean, there is a chance you can run into them at Charlotte, and there's absolutely going to be Virtual Adepts when I get to San Francisco.
Absolutely. Given that these guys are just too topical and too fun to use, to not use.
Yep.
All right. Ryan, what do you think of these guys?
I like them. I like some of their powers.
Center powers too. You can see yourself playing as one of these too?
Yeah. Randomly calling up a werewolf out of nowhere. Fucking great.
Yeah, too bad all the fucking mage games I run take place before the 50s.
Well,
Can you
you
imagine,
can fix that very, very easily.
Yeah, time 5.
Can you imagine how mad that werewolf's gonna be to find out that they were summoned by a thing called Here Kitty Kitty?
Yeah, and that's
Oh
it.
my god, yes.
Am I a fucking joke to you?
That would be really funny, just like instead
I could see Grim going on a fucking warpath, killing every mage out there.
Yep.
Yeah,
Basically, it's just
you
like
cast a spell. It ends the road that shows up.
that's
Yeah.
what I was just about to fucking say. It was just sitting there minding her own business, like phoop. Suddenly she's into California. Like,
The
holy
fuck
shit,
is
that
this?
holy shit, that worked.
You fucking hippies, get me out of here right now! I'll fucking snap you over my knee, you fucking twink.
Wait, you got here all the way from. Hang on, let me write that. Let me write that Glasswalker back. Hang on, he'll fix it. I kind of want to do that now. It's just like if you happen to run into the Virtual Adepts, you'll just be chilling in the
I
office.
have to slip sideways flaw.
Yeah, I know. And they just one of them just reaches through, plucks you over. Beep, you're over in LA. You're like, wait, the fuck, what?
In case you're saying, oh, the session's getting a little slow, it's getting a little bit low energy. Let me just pop this on you.
Yep. Or if you're being super talkative, they might just do it just to be like, all right, that's enough of that. She's somebody else's problem now. Anyway, where were we? And then he gets an angry DM back. It's like, bro, what the fuck?
And Clef finally gets a moment of peace.
That's the life.
And everything was lovely once again. Wonderful.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do need to bring her back. Evidently, she's making a mess of my friend's place over in California. She'll be back. Hang on.
All right. Well, that's a wrap. We've hit time.
Virtual Adepts are fun. Go play Virtual Adept. Go get your Sec Plus certification.
There it is. Even though I identify more with the Celestial Chorus, I'm going to say this is my favorite mage.
These guys are fun. I like this.
Yes. And we're not going to do Mage for a little while because we have a miniseries coming up.
We do. I will sadly be absent for not the first episode, but one of the episodes.
See, was it the 27th you're going to be out?
Yes, the 27th I will be.
That's the first one.
Oh, is it? Oh, I thought it was going to... So wait a minute. What the fuck's next week?
We're doing Changeling next week.
Oh, okay.
We're getting some changing out of the way. We're doing some changing because Kyle wants to do Changeling. We're doing the Knockers and Satyrs next.
That means I get to swear very creatively and get the video, blacklisted or flagged or whatever.
The Jewish clowns who build guns and other fun contraptions, and the Horn Dogs.
Yes.
And there we go.
Anyway, good night, everybody.
GN.